welcome back to I Did This Instead of Killing Myself, everyone. A stand-up comedy lifestyle podcast that I host out of my apartment based in Greenville, South Carolina. It is the first week of November. I hope you are having a great start to your Monday morning. I'm going to get right into today's guest because today is a jam-packed interview and a very prolific guest. We set the record in terms of the interview length. This is a Joe Rogan interview lengthwise. Todd A. Davis. He now holds the record. We talked for 3 hours, and Adam Schulte, you'll have to beat it next time. But yes, Todd A. Davis is my guest today, and I really, really enjoyed our conversation. I know 3 hours is a long time, but if you have time, just put it on and listen to the guy talk because really appreciated all of Todd's perspective. So a little background about Todd. He is a stand-up comedian. He also is a writer. He also produces shows, hosts shows, writes comic books. He does podcasts. He's formerly a sports writer for a local high school sports team. He does it all. So before we get into that, I want to quick shout out Todd's 2 podcasts. Because they're fantastic. Also, Todd makes T-shirts. I'm wearing one of his T-shirts. So, Mr. Todd A. Davis, ToddADavisComedy.com. So be sure to follow Todd on Instagram. So this is the T-shirt he graciously gave me. But his 2 podcasts that he's doing right now, the first one is he is a co-host on the Cinema Shock podcast, where he and 2 co-hosts explore the history of cult and genre films. I'm a huge movie guy, and it's the stories they're covering lately are the stories behind the director of RoboCop, Total Recall, and Showgirls, and they're on a series now about the Wachowski brothers and the Matrix movies. So Cinema Shock podcast, that'll be linked in the description below. And he also produces and hosts the Computer Resume podcast, which is he graciously gave me this sticker here, their beautifully designed logo. You can tell he's artistic, man. Very good. And this is a podcast that chronologically covers the entire Star Trek franchise from beginning to end. And I am not a diehard Star Trek guy, but it is accessible to people that are new to Star Trek or people that are obsessed with the show. He also does comic book brunch. You can follow that on Instagram, where he and his wife cover comic books every Sunday while they eat brunch. And he recently finished his first screenplay. So is that enough stuff? I'm exhausted just describing all of that. But I'm so excited, and I had a great time talking about all of this. On a personal level, Todd and I met when I started doing stand-up comedy, and I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And I remember one night at Radio Room, I was going up, and I actually offended somebody in the audience, and she was telling me why she thought I was a horrible person, and Todd overheard, and he took me aside, gave me some advice, some constructive criticism, and helped. And he's taken a little bit of a break from stand-up recently, but he is that person. Very much helpful to encouraging new stand-up comics, offering his advice openly. So yeah, big fan of Todd. Sorry to go on about the intro, but I wanted to make sure I talked a little bit about him and said, like, it's worth listening. I know it's a long interview, so a lot of you guys may not have time to listen to it all in one sitting, but I encourage you guys to listen to it. Check out Todd's stuff. He's awesome. All right, so before we get into the interview, though, here's what's going on this week in local comedy. First week of November. Beginning tonight, we have our open mics, Coffee Underground, hosted by Craig Holcomb, Travis Thubbin, No Expectations Comedy, beginning at 7 o'clock. Get there a little bit early, no cover. Immediately following that, we have All Jokes Aside at Habiba's Mediterranean Restaurant, hosted by Dante Anderson. A little different this month. Dante is actually putting on a comedy contest every Monday, where still no cover, but still no cover for audience members, but comics will have the ability to win money based on their performance, and then we're going to have some raffles as well as a part of that. So Habib is picking up a little bit. Continue to come out, comics come out, do your best stuff, win a little cash. Tuesday, Electric City Comedy in Anderson, Doolittles, hosted by Robin Scott. This week we have a very special feature comedian, Dwayne Duke, driving in all the way from Cleveland. So come on out to Anderson. Wednesday we have the Radio Room open mic, hosted by Adam Schulte. That starts at 8:00. No cover. Get there a little bit early to get on the list. And then Thursday, Jokes Out Loud at the Comedy Zone. 8:00, $10 cover. And come on out. I will actually be there this week. I can't wait to be back at Comedy Zone performing on a Thursday. Should be a blast. So that's it for local comedy. Hope you all have a fantastic week, and I hope you enjoy my interview with Mr. Todd A. Davis. Here it is. Okay, here we go.
This is it.
Todd,
we're on.
Fantastic
intro, sir.
Here
we go.
We're on. I saw Flip Switch. I know performer Todd when I see him. I know.
You saw it. Come on. The little red light.
Dude.
Okay, we're rolling.
Yes. There's something theatrical and very joyful about your energy.
I try to. Well, and I think I've seen that. Well, you've been around in our scene here in Greenville long enough to see everyone perform and to see where everybody's skill set originates from.
Yep.
Christina Yassi.
Yeah.
She clearly an actress.
She and you are similar. Did you guys both go to Bob Jones?
We did. The very first time I saw her, I approached her after the show at Comedy Zone. Uh-huh. And I went up to her and I said, my father graduated with his Master's of Divinity. I went there from kindergarten through 8th grade.
Yep.
And like as I was talking, her eyes were getting bigger and bigger. And I went, we're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And we gave each other a big hug.
So you knew that just based on her material and how she performed maybe?
Yeah, a little bit. You know, we can smell our own. Not to say Christina smells. But yeah, I mean, there's a certain type of energy of people who've been through the same set of circumstances.
For sure.
And for her, coming out of Bob Jones, I was like, oh, one of us. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so she and I became fast friends. And but yeah, the skill set thing, like she clearly approaches things like an actress would. Mm-hmm. I studied a little bit of acting, not to the degree that Christina did.
Yeah.
But I got into comedy through writing.
Okay.
And so I think my skill set tends to show the hand that I'm a writer.
Right.
And then performer, because I do tend to walk around the stage. Sure. I use a little bit of physicality, whatever physicality my gut allows me to use.
Right.
Some voice stuff. I've been known to sing a couple times.
Yeah.
And I just try to use every tool at my disposal.
I remember the first time I saw Yassi on stage, really quick on this, because I just remember. Yeah. It was so funny. Because I know every guy comic in the entire room was like, if they weren't paying attention, like, what? Like, because not only her performance, she's cute, right?
Yeah.
And she just
lovely. Absolutely lovely.
Yeah. And I remember being impressed. But that theatrical part comes through really well. And with your bits, too. Because my memories of you, the first time I saw you, I think it was at Radio Room.
Probably.
And I don't want to, do any of your jokes or spoil any of them.
It's okay.
But the thing I think of when I think Todd A. Davis is, yeah. Welcome back to Sports Center, Tom. And that was the bit that really stuck out to me. And you mentioned singing, your Backstreet Boys bit. Where you actually do sing some parody lyrics, I think. Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
And
then you tag it with a melody too, which is cool.
Yeah, I do. I also have one where I sang a Beach Boys.
Yeah.
I have one where I sing Beach Boys tune, and it's a story about actually seeing the Beach Boys perform live on a night I didn't want to be there. And that's a fun bit just because it's such a stereotypical story, and then it turns when I'm just like wishing violence on Cam Newton.
Yeah. That was when you were trying to watch the game, right?
I wanted to watch the game. She wanted to go to the show. So we compromised and we were at the show.
We went to the show.
Yeah.
She wanted to do.
And then there was a TV off to the side. So while in the concert, I'm also watching the game. So
right.
the melody ends up permeating my viewing of this football game. And then my inner thoughts about Cam Newton's Super Bowl performance comes out. And but that's a fun one too. I enjoy those, and I'm trying to, in the pandemic. Obviously when it initially hit that first wave, I was just like, all right, well, everything shut down. So let's read some comic books and hang out at home and whatever. And then we were kind of over the first wave, and then stuff started opening back up. I got back out there.
Yeah. Greenville comedy opened up faster than I think most other places in the entire country.
Yeah.
For better or worse.
Yeah, I was going to say for better or worse. And then I got to the Christmas show. The Christmas show last year at the Flat. And which is the
Toys for Tots show.
The Toys for Tots show.
Plug for Adam Schulte. That's an awesome show.
Adam Schulte, Stone Grown Comedy.
Runs the Flat. And then the big one is the Toys for Tots one, right?
That's our big show for the year. We usually try to get a couple of folks who are traveling to come in and bring the house down, as it were. And Schulte was like, "Hey, you wanna host?" Yes, of course, I'll host.
Do you enjoy hosting?
I didn't used to, but now
I don't right now. I've done it a handful of times.
Yes, the more you do it, and podcasting will absolutely help with the hosting thing, because
interesting.
I think it's a lot of listening, and it's a lot of gauging the room and gauging the vibe and being able to prep for that next beat of whatever that is, be it another comic or the next question you have or whatever it is. Podcasting absolutely helps folks who are just dipping, because performing and hosting, two different ballgames.
Very different. I know Adam tells me that, like, when he hosts a lot, you know, because he does it at Radio Room and that's his mic. And but he tells me, when he goes to or Coffee Underground, he's able to just do a set. I could tell it looks like he's maybe having a little more fun. He's not having to orchestrate anything. He's not having to.
Yeah.
But yeah, to me, the hardest part about hosting is you're getting like the plane off the ground from nothing.
Yeah.
So that default energy of an audience is it's just nothing. It's like, it's not. I mean, it's a little awkward. It's like
a little bit.
People aren't naturally in that audience mode yet.
It's a first date. You're on a first date with the crowd of like, okay, this is me. I went to college in this place, and these are the kind of people I've dated. And oh, hey, here comes the appetizer, and that's your first comedian,
right?
And it's very much like that. And if you can navigate that well, because as the comedian, you're kind of the bridge between the acts. So it's kind of your job to, wherever that comedian's energy is, you want to create that step either down or up or whatever it is, because
just even keel.
Yeah.
Or just be almost benign and not taken away from either side of the.
Exactly. Probably. And then look, if they killed, don't get up there and do your bits.
Yeah.
Keep that energy high. Okay, let's keep it going. And up next is,
and it's cool if I think about, like, I just had this thought, but if you think about like the great hosts of all time that I really love, like a David Letterman or a Johnny Carson.
Sure.
Or I like Jimmy Fallon a lot. I think he's very likable and fun. They're not really about themselves so much.
Right.
I think David Letterman's a very good interviewer. He's very gracious. I think Jimmy Fallon...
Well, here's the thing about the late night hosts. Fallon specifically is not a comedian.
Right.
Letterman's a comedian.
Yep.
Leno's a comedian. Seth Meyers is a comedian. Like, a lot of these guys are comedians. And you're like, well, Jimmy Fallon did stand up. Yeah, he did.
Right.
Jimmy Fallon's a song and dance man.
Correct. Yeah, he brought his guitar out.
Yeah, he's very much he's a performer, and a very gracious performer.
Yeah.
So he knows from from music and from comedy, and hell, however long he was on SNL, of like the give and take.
Sure.
Of like, okay, this is my minute, and I'm going to hit the ball back to you. Now it's you.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, as the host of the Tonight Show, it's a lot of, hey, it's you, it's you, it's you.
And it's just fun.
Yeah.
It's not, you know.
Yeah, he's there to have fun. You know,
the joke is he always cracks up more than anybody else in the scene, which people are like, okay. But, you know, you can't help but love him for it. So
yeah. Well, I mean, if you listen to Comedians in Cars, you know, when he talks to Lorne Michaels, he describes.
I haven't seen that episode. So Jerry and Lorne had a
Jerry
episode?
and Lorne. Yeah, Jerry went to 30 Rock, of course, and they grabbed a table at one of the restaurants there and talked at length, as they do.
I'm going to look up that one. That one sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it's really good because, I mean, it's Lorne Michaels. He's been responsible for a lot of comedy in pop culture for the last 40 plus years and worked with legends of the industry, like living and past. Yeah, that's a good one.
So what did he have to say about the hosting aspect, though? I kind of cut you off for.
No, it's just that Jimmy's very gracious. He knows how to listen, and he's a good talker, and he was really kind of, I feel like he was trying to gauge whether Jerry would be interested in a talk show type thing.
Oh yeah.
Which Jerry shut down immediately of just
That's
like,
funny.
no, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
15 minutes. That's all I can handle.
So Jerry, dude. I say it like I know Jerry because I obviously don't, but I worship him basically. But he seems like in his twilight
legend.
years, he's like kind of becoming more of a crotchety guy. And the guy, I mean, with this Netflix deal now and the Hulu one, I mean, his net worth is approaching $1 billion. So of all things I could imagine he'd want to do, a talk show on a network would be, in 2021 would be, yeah.
Well, I think when the show initially appeared, Comedians in Cars, I think it initially appeared on Crackle.
Crackle, it did.
And they you know, approached him of like, hey, you want to do a show? You pick. Whatever it is you want to do. He's like, I want to talk with my friends, drink coffee, and drive old cars.
Right.
And that's exactly what he did.
Yeah.
And he probably made money hand over fist doing it.
Right, because it's what he wanted.
Yeah.
And
he's at the point in his career where he has that luxury. And it's one of the things of he is a, you know, thoughts on current Seinfeld aside, you can't deny he found his niche in comedy and became a master at it.
Yeah.
He is the master. He is the living master of the observational style, which for young comedians like us, we're still very much in the observational phase of our comedic growth. Almost every comedian starts off with, well, my family's really weird, or my job's really weird, and here's why.
Deal with it?
Yeah. What's the deal with whatever? And
I really like Jerry's because I've been rewatching some of the Seinfeld old episodes now that it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
I hope everybody is, because I really want Seinfeld in the mainstream so people can appreciate it, especially younger people.
I don't think you're going to have to worry about that.
Do you think it's
that much? I think Seinfeld cemented his place.
No, I know, but I want to talk about it again.
Oh, you want to talk about it again?
Well, you know,
okay.
with just in the like, I'm not
sure.
No,
I get it.
But like, you know how The Office. It's so funny, and I think I've mentioned this before, but The Office came on Netflix like 10 years after the final episode aired. People forget how old The Office was.
Yeah.
I think it came out in 2003-ish, maybe 2004 or 5.
Yeah.
And my cousin, Caroline, who is 15, can quote every episode. She was barely born when it was on.
Oh,
so,
wow.
you know, stuff like that is cool.
So do you fall into the Office camp or Parks and Rec camp?
Office.
100%.
See,
I go Parks and Rec.
I need to watch Parks and Rec. To be fair, I haven't like rejected it or out of hand. I haven't seen, but
That's all the time we have for tonight.
So I know enough about. So I know Leslie Knope.
Yeah,
that's her name.
Yeah,
and I know Ron Swanson. I think he's hilarious.
Yeah.
I think a parody conservative in a bureaucracy is a hilarious character idea. That's what he does, right?
Right. Yeah. I think my wife I think because we've watched it so much, my wife loves Parks and Rec more. But honestly, I think if she were experiencing both at the same time for the first time, I think she would lean more towards The Office.
Yeah.
Because she's worked in an office so much.
Sure.
With my background, I identify with government work and the weirdos that work there.
Right.
So, yeah.
Todd's a paralegal, so that's right up your
alley.
Right?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. I was going to say The Office. The reason I think I got into it, this is so silly to say, but I was in high school and I was like, what do I want to do with my life? And I was like, it seems like being a businessman at an office. That's what I want to do. This seems like what my future is.
Yeah.
I want to be Jim Halpert. I want to be hanging out with Dwight and Michael. And it was just kind of this, that was my vision of adulting.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
And maybe I have a fling at the office, and maybe so. Of
course.
This narcissism of just projecting yourself into these characters, but
they're so iconic that it's kind of easy for you to sort of project yourself onto those characters.
It's a character-driven show.
Yeah,
I think that's what makes shows good.
Yeah, so, and you think to yourself, I know a Kevin. I know a Creed.
Yeah.
I know a Michael.
Yeah.
I know these people.
I know a Ryan Howard.
Yes.
I feel like I can be like Ryan Howard sometimes too. He's such a dick that like my worst thoughts I see in him sometimes.
I got to tell you, BJ Novak has probably one of my favorite one-liners of all time.
What?
I absolutely love it. And to be honest, sometimes if I'm just doing stuff and my mood is just kind of, I'll think of it.
What is it?
And I immediately get a little spike, a little drop of endorphins. He did it on Conan O'Brien years ago. Don't ask me to quote the year or anything, but it's so simple. It's like, why didn't I think of this? Battered women. Sounds delicious. Doesn't make it right.
That is
so
amazing.
Great, especially with the delivery, with the just dead stone cold delivery of battered women. Sounds delicious.
That's great. So I knew he was a writer. Is he a stand-up too? Has he done stand-up?
I think. Well, see, that's the thing is, and we're going to get into my podcasting and what I've been doing since the pandemic and everything like that. But I've been feeling like a bit of an imposter. Because on my show, I introduce myself every episode. I'm your host, writer, comedian, Mr. Todd A. Davis. It's been a while since I've written anything. It's been a while since I've done stand-up. And I feel like such an imposter. However, stand-up is such a great bridge to anything else.
I agree completely.
If you want to get into writing in a writer's room for a show, you want to start doing screenplays.
Yeah.
You want to start acting. You want to start hosting, like all advertising, all of this stuff.
Let me ask you this. So I agree that totally, but I want to ask your opinion on like if you're doing stand up and it's working to the extent that it's supposed to at your level of experience.
Sure.
Do you think that translates pretty directly into screenwriting, into other forms of...
Well, this goes back to what we were talking about at the top of the show of watching enough stand-up, you see everyone's skill set.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell Christina's an actress,
mm-hmm.
an actor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Craig Holcomb is an improviser.
Sure.
You know, Schulte's more of a host with darker sensibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Rainwater.
Sure.
He's the people pleaser. Like he's about the people. Every single show. People.
Yeah.
You know, all of that stuff. You know who makes the best show posters.
Right.
That person's probably great for advertising.
Right.
All of that stuff.
Right.
It all lends to different skill sets. It's not just going up there, holding the mic, being funny.
Yeah,
there's a lot.
There's a community, and to me, what I think Chris Rock made this point, but he said there are no great ignorant comedians. You have to be aware of everything to be successful, because if you're not, you'll lose people and you won't know what. And then you'll be like, and that happens when you bomb. You're like, well, something wasn't right about that.
Yeah, something was off tonight.
You have to kind of have eyes on all sides of your head in terms of
the
people around you, where your weaknesses are, what other people are good at.
Well, because I was thinking about this. actually on the way over here tonight, I was like, what am I going to talk about? Like, I have a lot of great things to say about comedy, but I haven't done comedy since Christmas. It's been almost a year. And I was like, what's a good comparison? I was like, well, it's kind of like if you break your skateboard, but you keep watching different skateboarding trick tutorials and like, oh, okay, I see how to do it. But you're not skateboarding.
Right.
You're increasing your brain power, but not putting it into practice. Like,
Sure.
I'm still writing. I'm still writing bits.
Yeah.
I've written probably good half dozen new bits.
Do you got any premises you're working on that you
Sure.
care to share? Or I don't want to spoil it if you don't want to.
It's a lot of observational things I've noticed about myself as I get older.
Okay.
And dealing with things in the pandemic. And I'm actually trying to start breaking away from the observational type stuff, but in a vein of addressing things that are hot topics, dealing with some race issues, dealing with a lot of my own issues, dealing with, I've never really talked about my experience in law enforcement on stage.
And is that as a paralegal, or did you do something else in law enforcement?
Oh, I was a cop I was a cop for the better part of a decade.
You were a cop?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's break down Todd's resume here. So, I got into law enforcement age 22, 23, something like that.
Okay.
They were hiring. A buddy of mine was a corporal at Greenville County Detention Center, county jail. And he said, I was working at the YMCA at the time.
Okay.
He goes, you got to be CPR certified to work at the YMCA, don't you? I said, yeah. He goes, and you've taken you've driven the bus for them too. You have to take like a driving course to do that too, don't you? I said, yep. He goes, so you've done martial arts for a long, long time, right? And fought a lot of people? He goes, and you're pretty good at talking to people, aren't you? I was like, I mean, we're in a conversation right now. He goes, tell you what, why don't you come downtown and work at the jail? We'll pay you twice as much.
Holy
Sold.
crap. Yeah.
I put in my paperwork and I worked there for 3 years as a guard. And
what was that like, dude? At the jail, are you seeing people coming in and out like DUIs and stuff?
Oh yeah.
Not
like
permanent inmates. It's kind of the jail is kind of like
so that's a big thing. A
Prison.
lot of people think jail, prison are the same thing. They are not. The easiest way I can break that down is jail. You're there for 90 days.
Okay.
Prison. You're there for 90 years. Right. That's kind of how it works.
Yeah.
With everything that I saw, it was a lot of frequent flyers. It's like, oh, Daryl's back in, another DUI. Hey, Daryl. He's like, hey, I'll just let myself into, cell 3. Okay, Otis. Like,
yeah.
And stuff like that. But you kind of get a sense of the justice system, like a boots on the ground approach to like, you're kind of the first stop.
Okay.
You get to know some of the judges that are out there. You get to know a lot of different agencies because at a county, you're getting all the municipalities. So it's not just Greenville City Police. You're getting Greer. You're getting TR. You're getting Fountain Inn. You're getting a lot of places. They all come to you with their inmates. If their jurisdiction doesn't have a jail, they bring them to you.
Right.
And so it was a lot of kids getting caught shoplifting, a lot of DUIs, but every now and then it's like, oh, multiple murders. Like
holy
stuff like that. Yeah.
What's the craziest thing?
Okay, so
are you able to share, by the way, like
craziest? I'll share as much as is public record.
Okay.
I met a guy, and I'll give you both sides.
Yeah.
3 inmates I can think of specifically. The first inmate was in shoplifting. He'd gotten caught a couple times, so he had gotten charged with habitual offender, which meant he was going down the road. He was going down to prison for not long.
What was he stealing?
Just like over the counter drugs out of a drugstore. Big bottles of like aspirin, stuff like that. Probably to make methamphetamine. Yeah.
Jesse,
I don't want to pin that on him, but
it's like Jesse Pinkman.
Yeah. So anyway, while this guy was in there, you got nothing but time on your hands.
Right.
And he would get a staple, a fork, a comb, a pen, like a flex pen, because they're not allowed like a lot of hard objects to stab people with. A pack of M&Ms. And he started carving soap.
Okay.
That was how he passed the time. And I saw a couple of the
works
things.
of art. Basically.
Yeah. So he started fairly simple, like some fairly simple designs, crosses, hearts, that sort of thing. Not long before he left to go down to prison, he said, "Hey, Mr. Davis, come up to the cell," which I'm always. Why don't you come down to the thing where we're on camera? He's like, "No, I got a new carving." I was like, "Oh, okay." And he had fused a couple of bars together to get a bigger block, and had carved a full bust Native American with a wolf's headdress.
Wow.
And had colored it, and using all the tools I just mentioned, using the color from the M&Ms, bled off into like little soap, basically watercolor.
Yeah.
But you get a spoon, couple drops of water, and your choice of color of M&M, and it'll bleed.
That sounds elaborate.
It is. Yeah. You got nothing but time.
Did he give it to you, or did he keep it?
Unfortunately, later that night, a different inmate caused some sort of ruckus or whatever it was, and we had to shake down the entire cell, which basically means anything that's been modified in the inmate's possession is considered contraband and is immediately thrown away.
Oh,
and
dang.
I know it broke his heart, and I saw because at one point he showed me one that he had, and it was a cross with a heart on top of it. I was like, okay. But sitting on top of that was a fully bloomed rose. I was like, that is impressive.
Yeah.
And then they shook down the cell, and the bags of stuff that were coming out of his cell, I snatched them up and was like, you know what? I'll take this out to the dumpster outside. And that went in the back of my car.
Do you still have it?
I do.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
I've
really
still got it at
cool.
home. So that was inmate number 1. Inmate number 2, young guy, 20s, in for, long story short, internet fraud.
Okay.
Are we allowed to curse on this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Pussy charges. Just real,
Is
real.
pussy a
like,
swear word?
I don't know. I don't know what you'll bleep and what you won't.
I won't bleep anything.
You don't bleep anything?
No,
Okay.
I bleep stuff on the clips only, but
Oh, okay.
I gave up on that after. Yeah.
So anyway, these charges are not big charges, and they're not tough, quote unquote, tough guy charges. But he was an absolute asshole to me, to my partner, anybody who came. It was just an absolute jerk, just an absolute jerk. And he was, quick turnaround, in and out, few days, few hours, just
Right.
But an absolute asshole, enough that here, years down the road, I still think about him of just like, man, what an asshole.
Right.
Inmate number 3. Nicest guy. Really, really nice guy. We were not on a first name basis because we had our last names on our uniform.
Okay.
So he knew me as Mr. Davis. I knew him by his name. Whenever I would see him, he'd always ask, "Hey, how was your weekend? How are things going?" He knew I was a movie guy. So, "Hey, did you see any movies this past weekend? Tell me what because he's inside."
Yeah.
Finally, I was like, you know what? I talk to this guy all the time. I wonder what he's in for. And looked up his charges. Apparently, he had chopped up a little boy and put him in a duffel bag and tossed him into some weeds and stuff like that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then
And it was the nice guy.
the nicest guy. Yeah.
Holy shit.
I went, and sometime later they were like, "Hey, Davis, you know that inmate you were talking to the other night?" He's like, "Yeah." They're like, "Check this out," and they pull up the camera footage where
he did it?
No. camera footage from inside his cell where he had gotten into a little back and forth with another inmate. The inmate went to the call box. There's a call box that if you hit the button, there's a little speaker, but it goes to the main control room, and there's an officer there. You can say, hey, I'm having an issue with such and such or whatever, or hey, someone's having a heart attack in here,
right?
Or, hey, the lights went off or the toilet's flooding or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So he and this other inmate got into a thing. The other inmate went to the call box, hit the button, and then I watched the guy, the nicest guy I've ever met, go over and stomp this man's head against a concrete floor.
Did he kill him?
He didn't kill him, but
whoo. Was this nice guy, like, how big was he? Big dude?
Yeah, he's big.
Okay.
Bigger than me, but not bigger than you.
Okay.
And he had like a lot of mass to him.
And he cut up a little boy into a double. Oh my gosh.
The other thing that I saw one time, and it was so funny, and this is why, and this kind of goes into like the advice I would give comedians, because you can give advice about comedy all day long. It's going to be a bunch of cliched stuff that, yes, it applies to comedy, but it applies to life and every industry in the world. But one of the pieces of advice I give is be as nice as you can, as much as you can, to as many people as you can.
Right.
There was a lieutenant who was known for being a bit of a hard ass. An inmate came back from court because while they're in detention, if they have a court date, that's when we shackle them up, load them into the van, take them to the courthouse.
Right.
Inmate had come back from court, sentenced to life.
Okay.
See where this is going?
I cannot imagine what that squad car ride would be like after I got sentenced to life.
So he gets back to the facility, and the facility is currently in lockdown for count. Facility counts 3 times a day.
Okay.
To ensure safety, to ensure the numbers, no one's escaped, blah, 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 blah. To ensure our records are correct,
right?
All that stuff. He gets back during count, wants to make a phone call, wants to call his family and tell him, hey,
I'm never getting out.
Yeah, I just got sentenced to life. Lieutenant wouldn't let him make a phone call. Come on, man. It's my, call my family, blah, blah, blah. Nope. And got in the inmate's face about it. Now, again, a lieutenant who's known for being a bit of an asshole,
right?
Which means most of the officers, i.e. backup, doesn't like him.
Right.
Gets in the face of someone who's just gotten sentenced to life.
Yeah.
I.e. nothing to lose.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
You usually only see knockout punches like that on HBO, ESPN. I saw the inmate. They're standing toe-to-toe, face-to-face, and I watched that inmate drop that 1 foot back. I was like, oh, here it comes. And he decked that lieutenant and dropped him 1 punch. I was like, wow, that was impressive. And of course, 2, 3, 4, and there's the rest of the officers, wrestling him to the ground, cuffing him, putting him in the cell.
There was a little pause there. They didn't mind.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a pause.
Oh my gosh.
So the day after that happened, I was working in the main control room, where all the security cameras are, all the computers holding all the information. I got to my post, so we relieved second shift. I'm at my post. Everyone from second shift came in and said, hey, can you rewind the footage from intake at about such and such a time? No problem. There it is. Ooh, and that was the first time I had seen it. Everybody from second shift came in to see the footage. I was like, wow. And of course, as they got relieved and left, they told their counterparts on my shift, hey, so-and-so decked Lieutenant so-and-so. And so slowly throughout my entire shift, all of my coworkers on third shift came in. Hey, can you roll the tape back?
Right.
Yep, sure can. I must have watched that footage like 50 times that night. People, like, the door would pop open and someone would just lean in. Hey, can you? Yep, it's ready to go.
Oh my gosh.
Everybody hated him. Everybody hated him. It was just like, couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
Dude, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
This is, to me, seeming like a good idea for like a TV show.
Especially
because
I submitted it as a TV show to NBC.
Did you?
Yeah.
Because the idea of a jail, I mean, it's perfect, especially because there's regulars. It's like Cheers, but in a jail, kind of.
I submitted it. I submitted it with the pitch of Scrubs in a jail.
Sure. Yeah.
And obviously didn't get picked up. Otherwise, I would not be sitting here doing this podcast.
Exactly. I'm sorry it didn't work out.
No, that's okay. I submitted that and another pitch for sort of the opposite of a family comedy.
Okay.
Called Baby Crazy.
Okay.
It was a young couple getting married and doesn't want to have kids. They want to just be together, but like
they have kids.
Their jobs. She's a nurse at a pediatric office.
Okay.
And he's school resource officer.
Okay.
So they're constantly dealing with children.
Yeah.
And
so they see all the worst parts or the hardest parts of raising children.
yeah, she sees them as, germ-infested petri dishes, and he sees them as potential inmates. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I wrote that up and sent both of those to NBC as part of they used to do a thing called the NBC Playground, and it was kind of like, hey, write up the next sitcom, the next NBC sitcom.
Did you ever get any traction on any of it?
No.
Or hear anything back? I'm curious. It's cool.
It's kind of one of those things. They get the pitches, they decide the ones they want, and everybody else hears crickets. And
okay.
I still have the pitches at home.
It'd be nice as a courtesy if they at least acknowledge the receipt of the...
Yeah. Well, I got the notice of like, we've received it. You are officially in the contest for consideration.
Okay.
And that was the last thing I heard.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about self-producing any scripts than to digital?
It's funny. As we are recording this today, earlier today, I have a script for a fan film based on a comic book property that has recently just fallen apart. Long story short, there's legal issues with the ownership of the company that owns the property in trying to create the next Marvel Cinematic Universe. This other company is trying to do it as well. And because the people I'm working with are also trying to work professionally in film, they don't want to get wrapped up in that and have it affect other irons in the fire that they have. So I got a very polite message from the director of the project today saying, gonna have to not do this.
It's kind of cool to get the letter from the director, though.
Well, it was
letter from a director of the like a major motion picture.
No, that it was going to be the director of this short.
Of
the fan film, and it's somebody I've worked with before on a different project as an actor, not a writer.
Okay.
But yeah, look, the fact that any movie gets made is just shy of a miracle.
Sure.
So on the independent side, on the short side, on the fan film side, good luck. Go to YouTube.
Right.
Those are the lucky ones.
Yeah.
The lucky ones have a finished product, and it usually lives on YouTube.
But if you had a completely original idea, an original script that you did, you wouldn't have those issues with...
True.
Right? So,
true. Yeah.
I mean, who knows if only like 100 people see it, but you could still...
It becomes a really expensive business card.
Yeah.
It does. Because if you think back to... There was a guy, and I forget his name, but he did a Batman short film. He worked in the costuming and prosthetics, but he had this idea for Batman versus Predator.
Okay.
And he put it together, and he shot... I mean, the movie's 8 minutes, I think. Mm-hmm. But he put it together. He got an actor. He put some cameras up, some lights, and shot the thing, and it went viral. And
yeah.
Like every nerd out there seen it of like, oh, Batman Dead End. Yeah, it's dope.
Really cool.
But he used that as, well, what can you do with a film. What can you do with a budget?
Right.
And he would slide them that short film. Here you go. That's what that
a really expensive business card. Okay, that's what you mean.
Very
by
expensive business card.
So this is like your tight 5 that you've honed, or like something to shop to comedy clubs. It's like that.
Yeah.
For
in terms of comedy, when you apply to festivals,
right?
Like, well, what can you do? Well, here's my 5 minutes. Here's my 10 minutes, 12 minutes, whatever it is. But here it is. This is what I can do in 5 minutes,
right.
and then based off that, they give you the yes or no. That's why festivals are great, but you're not there to perform for audiences. You're there to perform for agents, for bookers, you're there to network. And that's I think a lot of people forget that.
Do comedy festivals expect you to be, I know that's maybe not universal, do they expect you to be clean?
Depends. A lot of festivals,
clean-ish.
Every festival has their own set of rules, their own audience that they cater to. You know, there's queer only festivals. There's every group that's out there. There's a comedy festival. Odds are there's a comedy festival geared just for them, which is great. But yeah, I remember I just shared someone's promotion for a festival, and they're like, "Are you?" And they, "Are you part of this group?" I was like, "No, just a comedy fan." They're like, They're like, "Oh, okay.
God bless you for sharing."
Yeah.
Stuff,
They're like,
man.
"Okay, thanks." I'm like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah.
But yeah, it's look, you support where you can.
Have you applied to comedy festivals?
No, I don't know why, because I've talked with other comedians who have asked me the same thing of like, have you applied to festivals? I'm like, no. They're like, why not? And they're like, so-and-so is getting into festivals. So I was like, yeah. They go, do you think that you're funnier than them? And I was like, oh, well, they're doing a different thing. And they're like, oh, that was very diplomatic of you. Just answer the question. Are you funnier than them? And I was like, I think so. And they're like, yeah, you should go ahead.
Knowing how funny you are or anybody else is such a mind F to me. And I don't, we talked like early when I had just started, like that was when I met you. And it seems like the more I do it, as I haven't applied to any festivals, the longer I do it, the more wary I am of
because are you
sharing it?
Second year now?
Year and 3 months ish.
Okay.
2
well,
months.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, man. But it's just the more you get into it, the more you don't know, and the more appreciation you have for what good is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, be honest. Do you have a tight 5?
Yeah, I mean,
that works anywhere, anytime, any audience. A tight 5.
I haven't structured it like that.
Okay.
In terms of like I write a lot of new material and circulate it. Okay. I haven't sat down and structured all my best jokes one after the other, and I don't even know if it would flow appropriately.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. But is that saying yes to that when you would say it'd be ready to start applying to festivals? Or
I think if you think you've got a tight 5 and it's a tight 5 that backwards and forwards, inside and out, you don't have to glance at a paper, nothing. You know all the beats. Then I would consider filming it. And I mean, film it nice, like make it look good. Take that film and show it to people you trust. Is this good? Yes or no? Right. You get 3, 4, half a dozen people who know comedy sets and film and filmed sets and stuff like that. You get enough of those, like, yeah, you're solid, you're good. Yeah, consider submitting it to some festivals. Why not? Sure. And start. It's a spiral. You start here, start working your way out. Yeah. I wouldn't go much further than from Greenville. I wouldn't go much further than Atlanta or Charleston or maybe the Triangle in North Carolina. But, after that, start looking at like Chattanooga, start looking at like Louisville, Tampa, like branch out from there, get your feet wet with a couple different, in a couple different areas, get yourself on a couple bills with some local talent. Start headlining, some shows for a little bit of cash. And from there, The sky's the limit. You take that 5, you turn it into 10.
Right.
You take your 10, you turn it into 20.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're starting to feature.
Right.
Because now you've got enough time that you can feature for somebody.
Right.
You start featuring a lot. You keep writing. That 20 turns into 30, turns into 45, turns into 50. Now you've got an hour. Now you start headlining. You can start doing your own hour. You get that hour really polished. Film it.
You make it sound so easy, Todd.
This is the bullet points, man. Just the I'm skipping a lot of stuff, but yeah. And then once you've got that solid hour that you could freaking do in your sleep, you film it and shop it around. You know, a lot of people have, especially now in the age of the internet. Could I sound like an older man? But in the age of the internet, there's nothing keeping you from filming your first hour and putting it on YouTube. Sam Morril has done it. There's a bunch of people that have done it.
Yeah. What's his name? Guy from SNL. I'm blanking. Anyway, he produced his own special. Gosh dang it. And Mark Normand has too, and he's the one. I know you love Mark Normand.
Yeah.
You got to meet him when he came, right?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. A few of us did.
Yeah. Mark was really great. His opener, Chris Allen, was great. He and I have been back and forth on Instagram a couple times.
Yeah, Chris Allen's great, man.
Chris Allen's a
Super
great
cool
guy. Very, very funny. I got to work security for Lewis Black.
You did?
Yeah. that was a trip.
Where at Comedy Zone?
No, this was when I was actually living in Florida. I was working after my law enforcement career in South Carolina. My wife got a job down in Florida doing. Long story short, she's a financial analyst in the healthcare field.
Yeah.
So,
that's really cool. I'm in healthcare too, so I would probably love to talk to her about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So she got a job down there while I was working campus police up here. So I finished out the semester because I was also taking classes at the time. But I finished the semester here and then moved down. Law enforcement tends to be one of those good old boy professions where it's like, you got to know somebody.
Right.
And I moved hundreds of miles away from anybody I knew. So instead of getting on law enforcement, I got on security at a local college.
Okay.
And which was great because it was just like kick your feet up, wait for something to happen. And nothing ever happened. So,
breaking up frat parties, maybe.
We didn't even have any residents. We didn't have any residents on campus.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And I worked second shift. So campus shut down at like 7 or 8. My shift was till 11. So once they're gone, I go get some movies out of the library, kick my feet up, and just relax.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
But while I was there, we had multiple campuses. Lewis Black was performing at another campus, and they needed security. I could not raise my hand fast enough. Yes, I'll do it. And so I got to work. I got to watch from the wings, and hang out with him backstage.
Yeah, was he cool?
He's very, very nice, very sweet guy. I said, "Excuse me, Mr. Black, can I get a picture with you?" He's like, "Absolutely." Yeah. And I whipped out the phone to do a selfie, gave the finger to the camera, and I started laughing. He's like, "No, I'll do one for real." I was just like, there was nothing wrong with the first one.
Right.
But we did another one, and then once I moved back to Greenville, he played at the Peace Center.
Okay.
And I went and saw his show and approached him again.
Did he remember you?
Yes. Yeah? Yes, he did. And he did a voice on a cartoon years ago called Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law.
Okay. I don't know if I haven't seen that.
It's a great cartoon. Even if you're not in the legal field, if you're in the legal field, it's one of the best cartoons ever made.
Yeah.
But anyways, he did a voice on that show, and I took the season that he was in for him to sign because everybody was getting him to sign his book, his DVDs and stuff. And I was just like, I'm going to take something unique. And I slid this season 3 of Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law. He lit up like a Christmas tree. I'm just like, oh, wow, I haven't seen one of these.
Yeah.
And he signed it. Wow, Lewis Black. So I've got that at home.
That's really cool.
Yeah, he was a really, really nice guy.
Yeah.
The only other person I'd seen light up like that was Stan Lee. When I met Stan Lee.
You met Stan Lee?
Yeah. years ago. It was the 30th anniversary of Heroes Con, which is like the big pop culture convention on the East Coast. Everybody knows San Diego Comic-Con. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows that one. But here on the East Coast, Charlotte, North Carolina, usually around Father's Day, there's Heroes Con.
Okay.
And Stan Lee was going to be there.
Wow.
And Stan Lee was already, I think he was 90 or like 91. And I told the wife, I was like, holy crap, Stan Lee's going to be there. She's like, really? This is kind of a big deal? And I was like, he's like one of the last living legends.
Right.
She's like, okay, well, the meet and greet package, the prime seating at his panel, let's get it all.
Right.
And we did. I went and bought some of the comics where he is actually credited as the writer, got him to sign them. They're preserved. And then while we were in line, everybody's kind of comparing like, hey, what are you going to get him to sign? What do you sign? What do you do? Mm-hmm. And there was this kid kind of standing there, and he wasn't really, you didn't see what he had in his hand. It was like, what are you getting him to sign? He had this little book, and it was the United States Army manual that Stan Lee wrote in World War II.
Oh my God.
He got a copy, and I was just like, well, you win.
Yeah.
You just won the day.
Yeah.
And I watched this kid. He was a few people ahead of us, and I watched. And Stan, when rest in peace, Stan. But when Stan was sitting at the table, I was pretty sure he was asleep. He's done so many of those shows.
Yeah, I'm sure it's exhausting.
You sit at the table, kind of like this.
Uh-huh.
Your arms on the table, the pen's in his hand, but he just kind of. There's literally someone who slides comic books just underneath his pen,
right?
And he just goes through the motion. But when that kid got to his table and dropped that book on the table, I saw Stan Lee. Stan Lee was in his 20s again. I haven't seen one of these in years. This was back in the World War II. Yes.
Yeah.
Man, that was really cool to see.
Okay, so I'm completely ignorant to this world. This will be a good segue into the comic book stuff.
Sure.
But Stan Lee, he is obviously he's the godfather of a lot of comic book stories. What did he come up with out of nothing that was like he is most known for?
He is largely credited with, and because I don't want to do a disservice to any of the other creators, the one I'm pretty sure that he is most responsible for is the Fantastic Four.
Okay.
Everything else, those prime things in Marvel, Stan Lee had a hand in, but it was not his brainchild, is how memory serves.
Okay.
Jack Kirby was actually involved in a lot of that. Jack Kirby came from an age where the artists did a lot of the writing, which was kind of cool because they ended up coming up with what's known as the Marvel method, where a writer would go, hey, I've got a really good idea for Spider-Man. He stops a bank robbery, but then it's revealed that the bank robbery is actually a kidnapping.
Okay.
So that's the pitch. So if I'm the writer and I just pitched it to you, the artist, you go back to your office and start drawing Spider-Man stopping a bank robbery.
Okay.
Once you've got pencils, you give me those pages, and now I get dialogue balloons and I start filling in the dialogue.
Okay.
And then once I've got some dialogue, I'll send them back to you. And then you take what I've given you and you expand what you've got. And we go back and forth like that until the book is done.
Okay.
And then it goes to color, or it goes to ink, and then it goes to color, and then it goes to formatting, and then it goes to all this before it hits the printer. That was kind of how it was done back in the day.
When was the first comic book written?
The Platinum Age is in the 1800s, and none of that stuff exists anymore. So
wow.
But like the first modern stuff,
the
first modern stuff is probably like the Phantom and a lot of stuff that's currently owned by, I think, Dynamite or Boom. They actually got their hands on a lot of those golden age properties that the trademark and the copyrights lapsed.
Okay.
So they became public domain. The Shadow.
What decades are those around?
We're talking pre-World War II. So 1930s.
Okay.
A lot of that stuff. A lot of the stuff that any sort of remnants are still around today.
Mm-hmm.
Dynamite has a lot of them. Boom Studios has a lot of them. Yeah. So they still exist, but
right.
Yeah. And then later came the DC Comics stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you have Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash, those. And then shortly after that was Marvel.
Yeah.
Marvel really hit its stride in the 60s and into the 70s.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm fascinated by the reason I'm asking about the time frames is the writers at the time were obviously influenced by what was going on in history.
Oh, very much so.
And and you mentioned World War II with Stan Lee. I'm an economics major, and part of economic history that is the most fascinating is the 20th century, and going back maybe 200 years even, because so much was happening and the global conflict was so insane.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we think the pandemic is crazy, but
Well, comic books were actually one of the areas of commerce that they were actually able to double dip on a property, or they were able to double dip on a product, because a lot of those comics started as newspaper strips.
Oh, okay.
So when the newspaper strips came out, they kind of gauged interest from the fan base. The ones that were really popular, they took those strips, cut them up, and made books out of them, and now
so that's how a comic book evolved. There was comics, just the funnies, like on the
just newspaper funnies, and then most of those strips got reprinted as full issue books
around the time of the World Wars. Similar
because they were cheap. They could make them on the cheap.
Right. It's kind of an escape from the heaviness of casualties, and
it was both propaganda. Because at the time, you had Batman, Superman, Captain America punching out Hitler, punching out quote unquote, the Japanese, or punching out Stalin or whoever it was. Hey, almost every comic book character is buy war bonds, the whole thing. But yeah, they were actually able to sort of double dip on their own product, which was kind of brilliant. Flip side of the coin, the stuff that they made back then, a lot of that stuff doesn't exist anymore because the quality of the product, the paper, the binding, all that stuff, disintegrated over time. And then there was the backlash of the seduction of the innocent. There was a psychologist who actually attributed the youth culture, drugs, violence, that sort of thing. They actually attributed it to comic books. So,
like the video game narrative of the 90s.
The satanic panic of Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
All of that stuff. Same type of thing. But
Which is really BS.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely BS. Yeah. But it was so funny that we fought fascism and book burning in World War II.
Yes.
10 years later, you can find these on the internet, photos of comic book burnings where they would throw them in a big pile. I mean, we're talking stuff that you could, if you had them today, you could put a down payment on a house with it. Like stuff that's very, very expensive and hard to find.
It is interesting, the different faces of dogma.
Oh,
like how it can manifest itself. I remember Harry Potter. I wasn't allowed to read Harry Potter when I was a kid because I was at evangelical strict.
Oh yeah,
at the time it was happening.
Very much. Yeah, it was so interesting. I love the movie Pink Floyd, The Wall.
Okay. Yeah.
And in that movie, the character of Pinkerton Floyd is struggling with how he came up in the household where his father is killed in World War II. And he deals with that his whole life until he himself becomes the thing he hated. He becomes this fascist because, all the different circumstances. I won't recount the entire
I haven't
movie
seen
here,
this, but that sounds amazing.
It's wild. If you're familiar with Pink Floyd's music, I highly recommend watching the film,
The Wall,
because it's really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to ask you about this as a general question, but so you grew up son of a preacher?
Yes.
Okay.
Son of a preacher man.
You're obviously extremely creative. You have the comic book stuff. Yeah,
that's very sweet of you. Thank you.
It's self-evident. I mean it. Did you have any sort? And then Bob Jones. Did you have any sort of wrestling that you had to do with creative expression versus your traditional upbringing?
A little bit. The first creative writing that I did was at Bob Jones, and it was an English class assignment. Mm-hmm. We were given the very vague direction to write a fantasy story. Mm-hmm. Everyone in the class took that to mean castles, dragons, knights in shining armor, a wizard of some sort, damsel in distress, and Tolkien, C.S. Lewis. There you go. Mm-hmm. So they were all writing those stories.
Right.
I took the road less traveled by.
What'd you do?
I wrote a story about a vampire killer.
Okay.
It was fun. I think we had to write 400 words. Mm-hmm. I stopped writing after 900 words. I just fell into it and loved it.
It flowed out of you and you loved it. Yeah.
The two directives that we had with that assignment is we had to have a simile. We had to use a simile, and we had to have a metaphor for God.
Okay.
Which I had. I followed directions. I got my paper back, and it had a D. I got a D on it, and I went to the teacher and said, excuse me, I don't understand why I got a D on this. Said, you didn't have a simile or a metaphor. So, okay. I went back to my desk and I leaned over to my neighbor. I said, do you have a highlighter? I said, sure. Handed it to me. I said, thank you. Took the cap off, highlighted my simile, highlighted my metaphor, handed them back the highlighter, took the paper back to the teacher, gave it back to her. She looked at it and changed the D to a B. And I said, thank you. And it was just I was like, all right, I know what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that was a very big eye-opening experience for me. I had never really done anything like that before creatively. I had never expressed anything creative like that before. Mm-hmm. So this, my whole world cracked open. But then with the added experience of someone didn't like it and was like, you didn't follow directions. I was like, well, you clearly didn't pay attention.
Right.
And so I think I've kind of taken that. That's always stuck with me. Mm-hmm. And anytime anyone's had any sort of issue with my material, I'll listen. I'll absolutely listen to your complaint. But if it's clear that you didn't hear what I was saying, that's going to be my next question.
Right.
It's like, okay, you heard me, but did you actually listen?
Yeah.
Because I have a joke where it sounds like I'm making fun of criminal domestic violence, but I'm not. I'm making fun of this dumb commercial online.
Right.
But a lot of people hear me making fun of what sounds like criminal domestic violence. I was like, you're not listening to me.
Right. It's
you're
that
clearly
whole
not listening.
Don't color outside the lines mentality.
Sure.
I think of Dead Poet Society. I think we're good there. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Or anything like the comic book burnings, and then like it manifests itself everywhere. Like it can be in the evangelical space. It can be on the right. It can be on the far left, with thought policing and speech policing.
Sure.
It can manifest itself anywhere. It's not. There's no real rhyme or reason.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the writing of it. Like, and as a kid, I was always very outgoing. I'm the youngest of three, so it was always vying for attention.
Right.
My next oldest brother's 13 years older than me. My oldest brother's 20 years older than me, so I was a very late baby.
Yeah.
And was put in front of the television. My parents were 40 by the time they had me.
Wow.
They were kind of done with the raising kids thing. So, let's just sit them in front of the television, let them watch cartoons.
Yeah.
And then once I got old enough to start hanging out with my brothers who were in the demographic for David Letterman, Saturday Night Live, the kids in the
that
hall.
opened your world to the comedy.
Yeah. I was watching cartoons during the day and stand-up comedy at night. And
Right.
it's sort of, I sort of fused the two within my head.
Yeah, you know, I think it's cool, like what you said about you wrote 900 words and it felt like nothing probably because it flowed out of you. Like following that sort of instinct where it's just almost involuntary. Like that is kind of a signal for a creative person, I think.
I think so. Yeah, it's definitely a red flag. It's definitely an indicator. It's like, oh, you may have a proclivity to this.
Follow that.
Yes.
And it sucks because there's obstacles because people around you are going to say,
sure.
You know,
I remember,
don't do that. Don't, you know.
I remember watching you deal with someone who had an issue with your comedy.
Yeah.
And me standing by just inching closer to hear the conversation.
Yep.
And you, like, I got hands down, like, my hat's off to you. You handled it like an absolute pro. You heard them. You gave what I thought was a very generous explanation of what you were trying to do, but you didn't fold to them. And I was like, as soon as they were out of earshot, I was like, you handled that perfectly.
I appreciate it. I don't remember exactly what I said, but
I don't know. Somebody got bent out of shape.
She probably had a fair point. I mean, that was like a month.
Sure.
My shit was probably horrible.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, look, we all start that way. Mm-hmm. We all start that way. Everything we do is super rough. Like I had done stand up once or twice, which is a story in and of itself. But when I started doing stand up here in Greenville, that first night I was working at a liquor store, and the owners were from India, and at a certain time of the year they go back to India for like a month because it's very expensive. It takes a long time to get there, and if you're going to spend any amount of time there, it's going to be extended. So they basically handed me the keys to the liquor store and were like, okay, you run the store for the next month, which I did. And at the end of it, I had worked open to close Monday through Saturday for 5 weeks straight. And that very last week on Monday, I was like, tonight's the night. And I went down to Coffee Underground.
Yeah.
And it was all I had been like reviewing and memorizing and rehearsing the material I had written. I had a full page, only one page of written material, and was just constantly going over it constantly. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a new comic here for you tonight. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Todd A. Davis. Okay. And I get up there. The lights were so bright. It was the mic is in the stand. It was literally all I could do to hang on to the microphone, shut my eyes, and just say the material.
How'd it go?
It went really well, actually. Yeah. I wasn't really paying attention. I could hear laughter, and I know when laughter starts to die down, you go again. And I got through all of the material. I don't think I missed anything.
I bet it was endearing because...
Well, my name is Todd A. Davis. Thank you so much. Good night. And that's when I met Adam Schulte.
Okay.
And he's, a few weeks later, I'm back again, and he was like, let's talk. And he and I had a sit down there in the cafe of Coffee Underground. And we became fast friends. And he was like, why don't you come on with Stone Grown Comedy?
Yeah.
Not long after that.
How long ago was this?
I started for real March 2016.
Okay. When was your first? Was that around the time of your first mic, or was it before?
My first mic, my very first time at the mic was actually down in Florida. My first 2 times were down in Florida. Okay. And one was really great, and the very next one was an absolute nightmare. Yeah. I might as well tell this story. So I was writing my first comic book while I was down there, The First Adventures on Earth with Adam and Steve. Okay. A lot of fun. It ran every 2 weeks for a year. We took...
Was it a gay comic book?
Adam and
Steve?
Adam and Steve. It was...
That's the cliche joke.
Yeah, that's the cliche joke is that it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve.
Right, that's the homophobic joke.
Right, that's the homophobic joke.
Yeah.
So let me go a little further back. I get to this college where I'm working security. I know No one. All of my coworkers are all retired cops who are at least 20 years older than me. And I'm like 10 years older than any of the students, so I don't relate to anybody. So I'm walking around, doing my rounds, checking stuff, and I go into the financial aid department. There's a young lady working behind the counter. I see she's drawing. I was like, oh, cool. I was like, I'm a writer, and I saw she was drawing this little dinosaur character.
Okay.
I was like, oh, hey, that's really cool. I'm, very envious of artists. The only thing I can draw is a little skeleton. And I grabbed this little piece of paper and I doodled this little skeleton. And she was like, oh, that's really cool. We should, you're a writer. We should make them do something. I was like, okay. So I, finished my rounds, went back to the office and was thinking about it and was like, okay, well, let's make them do something. And that became the first strip of Adam and Steve, where the first man, Adam, wakes up. He's just been created in the Garden of Eden.
Right.
Realizes he's alive in this brand new thing called life. And he's so excited, and he's immediately eaten by a dinosaur. So now
that's great.
Yeah. So now he's walking around as a skeleton.
Okay.
And he and the dinosaur become best friends. So it's kind of like Calvin and Hobbes.
That's a really cool idea.
Yeah.
I love that.
The only word the dinosaur can say is roar.
Okay.
But they interact as if they are best friends and just
I love this. Is this a comic book?
Yeah. We did it we did that first strip. And then 2 weeks later, we did the next one. And then 2 weeks later, we did the next one. And that's when my buddy who has a comic book studio.
Do you sell these?
I've got a few copies left. Yeah.
I would love to get one.
Yeah. I'll get you
or
one.
borrow one or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to. Yeah.
But I've, my buddy who runs a comic book studio finally gave me a call. And he's like, hey, see, you're doing this Adam and Steve thing. I was like, yeah, just having fun with it. Just making some jokes. Like my father was a minister. My oldest brother came out years ago. So I've got a bunch of religious jokes and gay jokes from all of this. I was just like, I have nowhere to put this.
Right.
So I ended up just kind of putting them all in this silly little cartoon.
So Steve is the dinosaur? Is that right?
Yeah, Steve's the dinosaur.
Okay, got it.
And my friend who has the studio was like, so would you like to do it through the comic book company I have? I was like, oh, yeah, I guess so. He goes, all right, well, you and your artist sign a contract and send it to me and we'll slap our logo on it. And I was like, okay, cool.
Do they screw you out of stuff that way?
No.
Okay.
It was just kind of like, we'll help you distribute and we'll help you raise awareness and the whole thing.
I have no idea how that works. I was just curious. You hear stuff in the music industry.
Yeah. Well, that's the nice thing about the comic book industry. It's kind of like they can't make the product without the creatives. So it doesn't behoove them to screw anybody over.
Right.
But anyways, we started making this comic strip and we did it every 2 weeks for a year. And eventually at the end of that first year, we took all of our strips, we put them in a book. We took it to Kickstarter. We set a goal of $1,000. We raised a little over $1,300.
Okay.
And I cold called stores as, hi, I'm a writer. I've got this comic book. I was wondering if you'd sell it in your store. Go fuck myself. Okay, thanks so much. Like,
was it a lot of that? Did you get anybody?
A lot of that. I actually did find some stores who were very independent creator friendly, and were like, yeah, absolutely, yeah, we'll take 10 copies, we'll take 20 copies, whatever. And I drove them to North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, of all places. Yeah. And so anyways, while I was writing the comic book, the college I was working at had a sort of a seminar, a day-long seminar by a local comedian. It was put on by the English department, who the comedian was coming in to teach the kids about comedic writing and public speaking. And I was like, How long was
the seminar?
It was kind of like one
workshop?
seminar around midday, one seminar late in the day, and then there was a showcase at night where all the kids who have spent all day in these comedy seminars could write some jokes and get up and tell them in front of their friends.
Okay.
I was just interested in the information.
Right.
So I went to the people who were holding this thing. It was the English department. I went to them and said, hey, I'm writing this comic book. It's comedy. I've never written comedy before. Can I attend your seminars and just kind of sit in the back and the whole thing? They're like, yeah, absolutely. No problem. And then you want to perform at the end of the night, right? I was like, no, not at all. No, I really don't. I love stand up. I don't want to perform. Oh, come on. It's going to be a lot of fun. You'll have an absolute blast. No, I really don't want to do this. I just want
Isn't that funny? The resistance right before your first time.
I have the utmost respect for stand up and all that stuff. I don't want to do it. I'm doing this. Comic books are my thing. Oh, come on. Just come on and do it. Okay, fine. So I took the day off of work because the seminars were during the day and the thing was at night. And we go through the public speaking one, which I didn't have a problem with. And we go through the writing one, which was a little more interesting because, again, this is structured for stand-up, not for comic books.
Right.
So I kind of, okay, all right. And I had some time between when I agreed to do it and when it actually happened. So knowing that, I kind of went home and was like, okay, this is kind of funny, and I'll write it down. And okay, this is funny too.
So you had a little head start.
So I had a little head start. I had as much a head start as anybody else. So it comes to the day of the whole shindig, and we do both seminars. And now it's time for the showcase, and I'm like, okay, so it's all these students and the guy who works in security.
I'm picturing you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we go through the whole lineup, each kid, and they didn't tell us what the lineup was. So I'm backstage kind of, looking over my notes, walking around, kind of psyching myself up. Okay, here we go. And, as each kid is keep getting called up and I'm still back here, and they saved me for last. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll go up last. Didn't realize that's the headlining spot. Oh, okay, here we go. Didn't pay attention to how many people walked into the auditorium. It was most of the campus.
Oh my God.
You got to be kidding me. So I go up there, I do my jokes. I feel like it goes well. And my name is Todd A. Davis. Thank you so much. Good night. Turn around to leave. The host is coming back on stage and says, hey, don't leave. Don't run off. Okay. So I go off stage. He goes, okay, out of the 12 kids that performed, we're going to bring back your favorites. And he called them out. And the last one was me. And so I'm up there with like 5 or 6 others. He goes, okay, by round of applause, vote for your favorite. I didn't realize it was a contest. I had first time. This is my first time doing stand-up ever. Didn't realize it was a contest. And I'm standing. It was a very white part of Florida. I'm standing between the one black kid and the girl in the wheelchair. Who, in my opinion, had the best joke of the night.
Right.
She got up to the mic, took the mic out of the stand, brought it, and she's sitting in her wheelchair. And first thing out of her mouth is, you'll forgive me if I don't get up. I was like, give her the award. She just won the night. That is hysterical. So anyways, they're like, and your winner, Mr. Todd A. Davis. While all the other people are still standing on stage, they brought me a hilariously huge bouquet of flowers. And a bunch of stuff, and a bunch of knickknacks from the bookstore.
There's a black guy sitting there, and a little girl in a wheelchair.
And
you got it.
And the guy from security won.
Wait, how old were these other
college?
And how old were you at the time?
I was pushing 30.
Did you have a beard?
I did not have a beard. They wouldn't let us have facial hair at the time. No.
But you look.
But I had the tattoos.
Van Wilder coming back to campus.
Yeah, I wasn't in uniform, thank God. But it was kind of one of my jokes was, so yeah, I'm the guy that works in security. Let me rephrase that. I'm the guy who works in security, and that got a laugh out of everybody because
security was a joke.
Security was a joke.
Oh yeah, like you said, it was the
we did nothing. It was a bunch of retired cops collecting a paycheck. So anyways, part of what I won was a 5-minute spot at the comedian who hosted. It was a 5-minute spot at that comedian's open mic.
Okay.
So it was at a pool hall somewhere in Florida.
Brutal.
And I show up I've refined a couple things. I was like, okay, I'm ready to do this. Let's go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, first up, please welcome Mr. Todd A. Davis. I get up there, and I've got a tight set. It's real tight. I got an opener. I've got 3 bits. Each bit has 3 jokes. Right. Super methodical.
Yeah.
I get up there. I do my opening line. Crickets. Nothing. Not a boo. Not a snicker. Nothing. I go, okay, maybe that opener doesn't work. Let's try another opener. Do another opening line. Crickets. Okay, let's just go ahead into the first bit. Do the first joke of the first bit. Crickets. Second joke of the first bit. Crickets. After that, I went, okay, well, nothing's working, so bye. I put the mic back in the stand and walked off stage.
How many minutes had it been?
Well, the host wasn't ready for that, so she runs back up on stage and goes, hey, you've got like 4 minutes and 45 seconds left. So the typical first-timer comedian who talks too fast.
It's incredible how long time can seem when it's not going well.
Oh, yeah. Well, and here's the kicker. So I go, okay, it's not going well, so bye. She goes, you got like a bunch of time left. I said, well, none of it's working, so. She goes, is this your first time? I said, it might as well be. And that got the room laughing.
Yeah.
And I was like, you motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Couldn't laugh at any of the shit I prepared.
Yeah, I wonder if it was it overconfidence?
So here's the thing. I get to the back of the room where the comedian from the college who hosted the night.
Yeah.
I get back to the back of the room where that comedian is standing. He goes, oh, I forgot to tell you. This entire room, they're all comedians. See that table over there with those 2 people? They aren't comedians. I was like, oh, comedians don't laugh at things. I get it now. Some do. Some do. Bert Kreischer does. But yeah, that's it was a big eye-opening experience because my first time had gone so well. My second time I crashed and burned. So that was kind of really great for me to have those experiences right off the bat, back to back. And from there, it was always just kind of like, okay, they might hate you. Yeah. If you kind of have that in the back of your head, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. It's so hard.
Yeah.
Because it's like in the moment always, no matter what. No matter how many times you do it, like the resistance you faced that first time, like not wanting to go, like when they said, "Oh, you want to perform, right?"
Yeah.
and you didn't want to.
No.
I had the same reaction. I got invited to Comedy Zone for my first time, and the
after you had been doing
nothing.
Radio Room, nothing.
I did Comedy Zone my first time. Yeah, Radio Room was the next week, but I got that text, and it was like adrenaline and just dread, and it was like I knew it was like a fork in the road moment of I should go do this. I could run away. Yeah. And I think of that biblical story a lot. Jonah, when he's called to do something and he ignores the call and then he gets swallowed by the whale or the big fish. That was the same kind of reaction. It's funny, like I feel like that was stand up too, still to this day. Like it's a micro version of that every time.
Right.
There's always that resistance.
Well,
but there's always that call too.
Yeah, and it's so interesting to me when I talk to newer comedians, especially here, who are just getting their feet wet, just getting started. Like they haven't been at it for a month. Like. I was like, look, please understand that Coffee Underground is a lot different than Radio Room, is a lot different than Comedy Zone. Those 3 rooms are very, very different. You don't do the set the same way that you would in either one of those venues. I was like, look, Coffee Underground is where you go to really refine the material because the people that are in there are there to watch what is on stage. It's a theater. So you have no choice. All the chairs are facing one direction.
Right.
Once that material works there, that's when you go to Radio Room. Because Radio Room is a bar.
Right.
It is loud. Now you've got material that works. Now you have to be able to command the room.
Right.
Once you've got the material and you know how to command the room, then you go to Comedy Zone.
Right.
Because You're competing with some noise from the bar. They've got servers walking around, but it is a comedy club.
So it's kind of a hybrid of Coffee Underground and Radio Room.
Yeah,
they're there distractions.
They're there to see you, but it can turn combative quickly.
Yeah,
because that audience will turn on you quick. And luckily here in Greenville, the audience is fairly nice. We're in a very artist friendly area, I feel. But at the same time, like, boy, it can go south.
Yeah, I feel similarly. I when I go to Comedy Zone, I am pretty positive everything I'm gonna say is gonna work at least a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't bring things there that's brand new ever.
Well, and I approach it this way. I, in good conscience, can't ask someone to pay for something that I know isn't good yet.
Sure.
There's
absolutely that responsibility. I think,
Coffee
for the
Underground, Radio Room, you're getting your money's worth. You didn't pay a damn dime.
Right.
And I'm up here by myself. So we're in this together to polish this up so that when I go to Comedy Zone, people, who frequent Comedy Zone go, oh, you know what? I've seen this guy before. He's good. And they know that. But yeah, there's a big misconception that like, you write brand new jokes every time and that you never perform the same thing twice. Like that's dumb. That's you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Right.
Like, it's prepared material. Like you don't just do it the one time and it works and then you get your Netflix special.
Right.
That doesn't happen.
Right. I like to have kind of a rotation of things. New stuff. I like to write new things every week, but I like to circulate old things often to polish. Part of that's just to me, it's more fun creatively to have new things to work on.
Well, yeah. And look, once you get a nice stock pile of different bits about different subject matters, then you can say, okay, I want to structure a set on workplace experiences.
Sure.
And you can kind of pick and choose from those, and then based on the bits that you've chosen, arrange them in such that you actually create a storyline. Your set is your storyline. It is a narrative,
right,
from beginning to end.
And that helps keep people's attention.
Yes.
Sometimes there's some comics, and I hate to even say anything negative about Mark Normand, but one of his specials, I actually had a hard time getting to the end.
Really?
Because some of the jokes, the narrative wasn't, I didn't feel it as much as I do when I watch a Louis C.K. special.
Right.
Louis is brilliant. I mean, practically all of his hours they follow, some kind of, or they're just so off the wall creative that I'm like, boom.
The segues are so smooth.
Yeah, it's like
you feel like you're in the same bit.
Yeah, and it has a continuity throughout.
Yes,
there was a little bit like with one-liner comics. That's a challenge for me to watch an hour of Jeselnik, for example, too.
Yeah,
a hard time for me. But your point about narrative structure in a set and how the jokes work together is a good one.
Yeah, I mean, and Jeselnik, that's the nice thing about watching these professional A-list comedians over a period of time. If you watch Jeselnik's first special, it watches a lot different than his most recent special. Same thing with Amy Schumer. Like, to watch her, even if you watch like the Leather special back to back with Bigger, I think was her most recent one.
Okay.
The one she did was she was pregnant.
Okay.
You can see a big difference in her skill in writing, in her skill in performing. You can see that growth there.
More dynamic.
Yeah.
More narrative structure, more things like we're talking about. Okay.
Absolutely. And I mean, you can look at that over time with a lot of different people. One of the nice things about, I have Paramount Plus, so I can watch all things Star Trek.
Nice.
But one of the nice parts about it is that Paramount has Comedy Central. So they've got the comedy sets from everybody that have been on Comedy Central back into the early 90s, late 80s. And it's great because you can pull A-listers, like today's A-listers, you can pull their Comedy Central sets,
Right.
their Comic Cabana sets, their Comedy Central Presents sets, and look at that stuff versus what they just released on Netflix now, and look at the progression.
Yeah,
it's really fascinating.
It is. And the guy I just complimented, Louis C.K., I can find his old material and make similar criticisms that I may be making about new comics now. And even by comparison, I think, Mark Normand is better than the old Louis C.K. material. I don't know if you've ever made that comparison. Have you ever seen his Louis' old hour, where the one that he talks about a lot that he stuck with for like a decade, and he kind of hit a wall where he was almost depressed, and then George Carlin inspired him to do a new hour every year and push himself creatively out of desperation more than anything.
Yeah.
He used his old act as a security blanket, but that old act is funny and clever and good, but it's not near the what he's produced since then.
Yeah, and I think when a comedian goes through something life-changing, you'll also see that.
Yeah.
Patton Oswalt losing his wife.
Yeah.
The special he did right after that was brilliant. And I loved Patton Oswalt before that. But to hear him talk so openly and honestly about his wife dying being the second worst day of his life, where the first place worst day of his life was telling his daughter. It was just, I heard it again on, I have Sirius XM. I heard it again in the car the other day, and I got to where I was driving to and just put the car in park and listened to the rest of the set before I got out of the car. It's so good. It's so good. Flip side to the coin, you watch Jerry Seinfeld, 24 Hours to Kill, where he himself makes the joke of like, you know who I am. If you were me, would you be up here hacking out another one of these?
Yeah.
Like, you can see, because his stuff, he's still the master of observational. But that's what he's doing.
Right.
Same thing.
Right.
The bits are a little longer. He's got the benefit of age. He also has success, be it benefit or hindrance. So that colors
Success
it a little
can
bit
be your
too.
own worst enemy.
Oh yeah.
Which is why I'm actually really excited. I mean, did you see? I'm sorry, I'm talking about Louis so much. After he got canceled, Sincerely, did you watch that hour?
I have not watched Sincerely.
Oh
yet.
my gosh!
And not because of any. I just haven't had the time.
Yeah. And I don't mean to take sides or anything. I mean, I'm very partial to him, but I think he basically was at the mountaintop, and then from a career perspective was as low as you could get.
Sure.
And to see a more gracious side of him, like beaten down guy, like I kind of think that's when he's at his funniest.
I think doing the set, because he did that, and Aziz Ansari, same thing.
Yeah, I haven't seen any posts.
The set that he did, which was directed by Spike Jonze, it was a departure from the other material, from the other specials that he's done so far. And it was a breath of fresh air. And then he kind of addresses of like, this was very scary for me. And I almost lost everything.
Right.
Like he keeps it.
It's deeper than.
Yeah, it's much deeper. Look at, look at Bo Burnham. Like, look at his first few specials, and then look at Inside.
Christina and I talked about that on ours.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely
compelling.
brilliant. Like my wife does not like comedy.
Right.
She does. Let me rephrase. My wife does not like watching stand-up comedy. And finally, I got her to explain why, and she's like, "It's so sad." And I was like, "That means you understand." It takes a special kind of damaged to do what we do.
Right.
To literally talk about your life and the things that have, for lack of a better term, for the things that have hurt you, and turn it into entertainment for total strangers.
Right.
Go to therapy.
Yeah.
Read some self-help books or something. Like there are and I mean, well, what do you get out of it? Free drinks. Good. Just what you need. Alcohol. Awesome.
Yeah.
And bar food. Yeah. I can use some more of that.
Yeah.
Like, oh God.
Yeah.
So yeah, it takes takes a special kind of damage to do what we do.
Yeah.
And I think celebrity or success does not exempt you from it either. Mm-hmm. And that's very evident. Mm-hmm. You know, it's magnified.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, you're preaching to the choir. You know, you know the name of this podcast.
Yeah.
And I actually feel weird about that sometimes. I've never been literally suicidal or anything.
No,
it's
great. Once you get there, you'll just. Yeah, the food tastes better. Yeah, you know, the beer goes down smoother.
You know,
your blankets will never feel more comfortable than when you are honest with truly suicidal.
With the misery that human existence is. You've come to grips with it. Yeah, you're free. It's good. No, I mean, there's an element of darkness to the name, and the expression is like, this was me trying to be creative in a self-deprecating way, and that's what I needed in my life at the time that I wrote it. I never came to anything serious depression, but comedians have something, I think.
Yeah, there's been times where, I mean, when I was in law enforcement, one of the things they tell us at the academy is they give us all the statistics. Mm-hmm. They go, congratulations on becoming law enforcement officers. Statistically, you have just shortened your life by 17 years. Like, sorry, what now? Like, yeah, even if you never draw your gun in the line of duty.
Is the reason for that?
Stress.
Assuming
you don't die in your patrol car, or die on a call, or blow your own brains out, or drink yourself to death, or whatever it is. The other statistics they gave us were like, look at alcoholism, drug abuse, spousal abuse, suicide, amongst law enforcement. Like, that stuff's high anyway.
Right.
In law enforcement, it's through the roof.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
You know, with comedy though, and I don't know, I almost hesitate making this comment because I don't want it to wear off. But it's been over a year and I'm doing it regularly.
Are you over it?
No.
Oh, okay.
It makes me happy.
Oh, okay.
Which, when I tell people that, and mean it, I'm like, holy shit, nice. I wasn't giving you a line.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me, it balances me out. It
releases endorphins, man.
It does, and it's not like and I've mentioned this before, it's not a shallow pleasure. It's hard. I don't want to do it all the time. You know, it's like working out. But it's like, it's a process, and once I understood that there's not an arriving, it's a process. And you kind of go through that. It's like you can kind of operate the your life in a way that's like shit, but you're moving forward. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Because I've been in ruts before. You know, I'm sure a lot of people have, whether it's career or just,
Yeah, and it's
seeking for something.
Oh yeah.
There's like more. It's more about a process.
So in terms of creative expression, it's great because you're taking a final product and making it better. Mm-hmm. Stand up, the open mics are your editing process.
Yep.
And I've said this to a bunch of young comedians of like, look, I probably asked you right off the bat, what's your writing process? Mm-hmm. I asked that of almost everybody. Mm-hmm. And the folks who were just, I just get up there and wing it. And I was like, okay, clock's ticking on you.
Right.
But the folks who approach it seriously, who write down their stuff, even whatever method you determine is best for you to keep track of your material.
Yeah.
Great, as long as you have one. Mm-hmm. But understanding that it doesn't stop there. Mm-hmm. You take that stuff to the stage, bounce it off an audience, because what's funny in your head is not going to be funny to somebody else.
Right.
That's what you need to go back and fix. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to scrap it all together.
Right.
You may just need to reword it a little bit. The ESPN bit, my closer, that's been my closer for a long time, it did not come out in that form.
Right.
Exactly. I actually took it to an actress.
Yeah.
An actor who happens to be my niece, a classically trained actor who is now, I think she's a professor of theater at Furman. And I ran the bit by her and she goes, oh, take the second part and switch it with the third part.
Right.
And I did. And it hit so much harder. and I started closing with it, and people come up to me, da-na-na, da-na-na, you know, all the time.
Yeah, because I haven't seen you in months and months and months. When I think Todd A. Davis, I remember, you know, your signature bits, like, so.
Yeah, it's been a lot of stuff like that, and I'm trying to write. I am writing more, and you know, when I hosted that Christmas show, is where I got COVID.
Yeah.
And
so this is kind of what got you out of a stand-up
this is what
mode.
Got me currently out of it. I'm still writing, and I do plan to go back once this is in our rear view.
There's a mic tonight at 8 o'clock at Radio Room.
Not Radio Room. No. No. And I'll tell you why. I will tell you exactly why.
I'm just messing with
No,
you. I did
okay.
not mean to pressure you and be like, "Oh, you pussy."
No, what you're really saying is, Todd, wrap this up. I've got a mic to get to.
No, seriously. I just glanced. I don't want to.
No, that's fine. So here's what happened. I did the show. Few days later, got the call from one of the comedians going, "Hey, just to let you know, tested positive for COVID." I was like, "Oh, great. Well, at least we were all using the same microphone." That next day, I woke up with a cough. Cough didn't go away all day. We were supposed to travel out of town. This was days before Christmas. We were supposed to travel out of town to see my wife's grandmother. She's like, "Well, if you've got COVID, we can't go see grandma." It's like, okay. So I went and got tested, and sure enough, Christmas Eve, my test results come in. Congratulations, you got COVID.
Christmas Eve.
Yep, is when I got my test results. My wife, without getting into all of her medical issues, has a neurological condition. So she was around me. We share a bed. She got it too. I bounced back in about 3 weeks. She got it in Christmas 2020. She still has hard days. This is October 2021.
Wow.
She has still not fully recovered. And she means more to me than comedy. So,
yeah.
Open mics will be there.
Yeah. No,
I can keep writing.
Yeah.
I can keep podcasting.
Yeah. I've been vaccinated, by the way.
Me too.
So, you know.
Yeah, fully vaxxed.
If coming here, you know.
Yeah, no.
Freaked you out at all?
No. It's, fully vaxxed. I still had to go to I'm still working in the office. Like, even after everything was cleared, like, I still went back to work. Right. I had to stay out because there's a individual in our office building who has cancer. So it's like, you make sure you get clearance from your doctor before you go back to work.
Right.
Which I did. And of course, mask up all the time, hand sanitizer, try to be as conscious as I can about stuff. But in the meantime, Radio Room's dirty. It's just,
they do like orgies on stage.
it's just dirty. I can't in good conscience go to Radio Room and then go home to my wife. Can't do it.
If anybody's watching from out of state, like Radio Room is
it's a rock club.
I love it.
It's a rock club.
Yeah.
And they have
rough around the edges sometimes.
Right.
Maybe not the most sanitary.
Yeah.
I don't know. It is. I mean,
look, we're making it sound like it's, like there's slime dripping off the walls.
Like
it's not.
What's the bar at Star Wars? Tatooine.
Oh yeah, the cantina.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. But no,
I love that place.
It's a great place to perform, but at the end of the day, it's a bar.
Yeah.
Like, people crowd around. They get sweaty.
Yeah.
They're on top of each other breathing, and some people are masked, some people are vaxxed, not everybody. And then, the acts on stage. It's a lot of music. We got comedians, which comedians and musicians are dirty enough. But like, they also have other acts that perform, and I won't speak to their level of cleanliness, but like, look, humans, we're filthy.
Right.
Like, so I just can't go back yet until this thing's in our rear view.
No, completely understand.
So, yeah.
I was just nudging you.
No, trust me.
Part of it's selfish because I love to hang out more and also,
Right.
Talk more about comedy and stuff.
Yeah, and trust me, like, I see all the ads you do with they're friends of mine.
Yeah.
Like, I see them all, and I see posters on Instagram of shows coming up with my friends. And I'm like, I would absolutely love to go, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah, sure.
And like I said, I'll go back eventually. In the meantime, I am writing. I just finished my first short screenplay not that long ago. With my podcast, it relies heavily on some scripting from me because of the nature of my podcast and what I'm doing with the Computer Resume podcast. Available now wherever you get your podcasts.
What is this one?
Computer Resume podcast.
Computer Resume podcast.
We are covering the entire Star Trek franchise.
Okay.
In chronological order because I'm a sadist. I did the math the other day and ran the numbers. At the pace that I'm going, I should wrap this podcast up. I should wrap up Computer Resume podcast just before I turn 60. So there's a lot of Star Trek out there.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I've had family, friends, comedians, actors, artists come on and we talk about Star Trek.
Okay.
But it's very loose. Like I was somewhere in the real world and somebody came up to me and goes, "Hey, I started listening to your podcast." I was like, "Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you." They said, "Yeah, it's only kind of about Star Trek." And I was like, "That's fair. Yeah, we go off on tangents and just
that's helpful for me because I'm not a Trekkie, but it'd be accessible because of the
it's structured for wannabe nerds just like you."
Okay.
Well, I mean, and we started at the beginning of the narrative. So the first show that we're actually covering is the Scott Bakula series from the early 2000s, which started right after 9/11, which started like less than 2 weeks after 9/11.
Wow.
And we're examining it. I mean, we're examining the narrative, but we're also examining like television production at that time. You know, it's like, oh, it's one of the newer series. It's 20 years old.
Yeah.
It just had its 20th anniversary.
Right.
So it's weird to think about it that way. And then we'll go from that to like Discovery, which is practically brand new, came out within the last 5 years. And then we'll go to the original series from the 60s.
Right, right.
But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm having fun with it. And I'm able to poke fun at it as much as I love Star Trek. Yeah, it's ripe for jokes.
So it's a self-aware analysis.
Very self-aware.
That's cool.
Yeah, and
I like that a lot.
It's my only prerequisite for people coming on the show is that you kind of like Star Trek.
Okay.
Or you're at least curious
or
about
do
it.
homework beforehand. I mean,
the only homework I ever ask of anybody is watch the episode that we're talking about.
Okay.
If you want to watch more than that, you're more than welcome.
Yeah.
If you've seen it before, great. If you've never watched anything Star Trek, that's okay too. But we're going to be talking about this one particular episode. It's 45 minutes of your life. And then we'll talk for hour and a half about whatever.
That's really cool. So you do another one too, right?
I do.
Cinema Shock?
Yes.
Is that the one?
Cinema Shock, where we cover the story behind the stories. So we're covering, it is more focused on the production of genre films.
Okay.
So we just finished our series covering the director Paul Verhoeven. Do you know the name?
No.
RoboCop.
Okay.
Total Recall. Showgirls. Basic Instinct.
Yep.
He's from where is he from? He's not from America.
Okay.
And his career and his films are very fascinating. A lot of religious allegory, even in Showgirls.
Okay.
There's a lot of religious stuff in all of his films.
Sure.
So we just finished that, and we just started our series covering the Wachowskis.
Okay.
So,
yeah, excellent.
Yeah, we started
That's Matrix, right?
Yeah, we start the timing of this series by one of my co-hosts, Justin Bishop, who's kind of the keeper of the histories, which a lot of it is coming from him. He scheduled this series for us to go through the entire Wachowski catalog of films and end with Matrix 4.
Okay.
So that's the last thing that we will cover will be Matrix 4. But it's kind of cool because so it's me, my friend Justin Bishop, who's kind of the historian, my friend Gary Horn, who actually runs the social media for the National Wrestling Alliance.
Oh, wow.
The NWA, which is really cool because like he has like the world heavyweight champion's number in his phone and you can just call him at any time.
Right.
And he has some
Does
great.
he live here in Greenville?
Yeah. He lives here in Greenville. He's got great stories. Like he just came back from Louisville not that long ago. While he was in Louisville, he texted me and Justin going, just so you guys know, I'm at a party with Ric Flair,
Nature Boy,
and Billy Corrigan from Smashing Pumpkins, because Billy Corrigan owns the company.
Right, right.
He goes, I'm at a party with Ric Flair and Billy Corrigan. What is my life?
That's amazing.
And so we're all jealous of him. Anyways, so it's me, Justin, and Gary. Justin is the brain. Gary is the heart. He studied musical theater in college.
Okay.
And but also has the desire to know more. And so Justin's the brain, Gary's the heart, I'm the gut. A lot of times what we're watching is my first time watching it.
Yeah.
Or first time in a long time.
Okay.
And so I bring the fresh perspective. And the three of us have known each other for about a decade.
So you got a great chemistry between the three of y'all.
Yeah.
That's huge.
We the three of us were all in each other's weddings.
So huge.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been really good. They actually start that Cinema Shock is actually the most recent version of their show, which we've been running for just over a year on that. Before that, it was called Psychotronic Film Society, and that was 2 or 3 years. And before that, it was Slice of Fried Gold.
Okay.
And I was just a guest. I was a guest. I was the reoccurring guest.
Sure.
And here recently,
how is
we
Cinema
made me
Shock
official.
done from a following perspective?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
What's
yeah.
pretty good? Because I'm trying to gauge where I'm.
So I'll tell. Okay, I'll tell you
seedlings
this.
of a podcast.
I can't give you exact numbers of Cinema Shock. I can tell you my numbers from Computer Resume because you and I have been at it for roughly the same amount of time. We were talking about this earlier before we started rolling. I started in February of this year, February of 2021. I think you just after
April-ish,
April,
March
okay.
or April-ish. Yeah.
Right now, I'm looking at I'm a little over 700 downloads. What are you download number
per
total,
episode?
Total.
I think around 1,000.
Okay,
but I don't know. Is that what they show on Anchor at the top?
probably.
Okay. I have a hard time tracking total. I think it's
20
per
to 25
episode.
per episode.
50 on
50?
YouTube. And
Okay,
then
cool.
20 to 25 on Anchor.
Because you're doing the video stuff to video. This.
So I don't know how many of those are the same people or how many might
Mine's-
be double counting on YouTube if I click into it for whatever reason.
Okay.
But,
at this point, I'm solely audio.
Solely
Just
audio.
Yeah.
Okay. So my audio is much lower than 700. Adding together YouTube is probably about the same when you factor in.
The plan is, spoiler. The plan is because I do have all the video content and just haven't done anything with it. I want to get to a point where I start uploading the raw video to YouTube.
Okay.
Because I shoot through Zoom. So I think that will be interesting because then it'll give folks kind of a chance to rediscover the show. But it seems like you've been doing video and audio like from the ground running.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a lot of work. I love video editing.
Yeah, it gets you in front of more people.
It's a pain. I don't know. Have you done video editing before?
No. I'm curious about it.
I could
but
show you before we go.
Yeah.
Just a quick little thing.
Sure.
It's Adobe Premiere is what I use.
Okay.
And I really like editing together. The podcast clips get a little tedious, but like if you're doing something like one of your scripts or something, making that into a short would be really fun.
Yeah, I think so.
You
Because
obsess over it. Once you start it, like if you know how to put the pieces together, you can't stop thinking about
right.
how it would look in the end if I could just get it.
Yeah,
know what I
I
mean?
think especially, and again, over 30 episodes, like I used to agonize. I used to agonize over every breath taken.
On the podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every breath, every every, you know. The phrase is nails on a chalkboard to me when I'm editing because I hate that. Because
it can be overdone for sure.
Yeah, because you say like the person knows. The audience might not know. Don't say that. So
Plus, it's just an annoying filler that if it's repetitive, people notice.
Exactly. Well, and that's the nice thing about editing as much as I have through Zoom is I'm getting to hear all of their audio setups. Plus, I've recorded with some folks out of England, which was a scheduling nightmare. But there's another Star Trek podcast out of England called Red Shirts. 3 comedians who, when the pandemic hit over there in the UK, everything shut down. But they were all big Star Trek fans, so they just started recording their thoughts on Star Trek.
Right.
And they've been running for a little over a year.
Okay.
And I've been on their show 4 times.
Okay.
And each one of them came on one episode of mine.
Okay.
So we did a little crossover.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. But
absolutely.
Again, scheduling. Oh. Well, I mean, we do the same thing in comedy.
Yeah.
Like, have you booked a lot of shows? Have you produced?
Booked my own show?
Yeah.
No. The only closest thing I did was I did a mic here on the rooftop.
Right.
That was just for
That counts?
comics and friends of comics. Sure.
Okay.
So I have, but because this is a private building, I couldn't. We had audience occasionally.
Yeah.
But it was people who just were on the roof by the pool, didn't know there was going to be a show. Nobody complained to the HOA, thank God, if anybody's watching. Because it wasn't clean either. Like oh my God. It was open mic material, all different. So
it broke my heart that I wasn't able to come to any of those shows.
we'll start doing it again, I think.
Will you?
at some
Okay,
point.
good.
Yeah. And
I mean, really wanted to do those shows.
It looks awesome. It's brutal in
Really?
a sense.
Okay.
Well, for me, because it was my first time hosting. So I thought, oh, this will be like normal. And then, I'm in front of my friends in an outdoor open venue. And, you bomb as a host.
Yeah.
And it's like, comedy's not really meant for outdoors. And in that situation, it's
Did you get a lot of noise from the street?
No.
Okay. I was wondering about
not much. And, we had the speakers here and it was fine. I mean, it got better, but I think I was taken aback by like how hard hosting is. There's a lot of stress in getting things ready, getting head count before a show.
Oh yeah, and
all that stuff.
hosting is its own thing, separate from stand up. Producing, is even more so because before I got COVID was my big show out in Greer.
Spinning Jenny.
Yeah,
I remember that
Jenny.
one.
It was. Did you go? Were you there for that?
I don't know if I don't think I didn't go.
Oh, okay.
I'm a bad friend. I'm sorry.
No. Trust me.
But
if
I remember
we hung
up posters in the building. I remember we had that poster.
Right. Yeah. That show was really. It was good. I learned a hell of a lot. But yeah, it was an absolute nightmare to try because first of all, it's dealing with the venue. Because I saw the venue online and just dropped them a message of like, have you considered stand-up comedy? They're like, no, we haven't. So I reached out to them and I started approaching it from like, we can have a show. Then once they say yes, okay, now I got to get a lineup together. And then you start picking and choosing, which that is its own
political. It's like, I got left out, or why did he?
Well, I've always approached booking a show of like, okay, who haven't I worked with in a while? Who's never been on one of my shows before? Who's funny?
Right.
Primarily, who's funny?
Yeah. Right.
And then once I book 2 or 3, and I try to structure a show so that there's somebody for everyone. Walk into an open mic, you're going to see a dozen dudes that look just like us with questionable facial hair talking about their daddy issues. That's 90% of open mics.
Right.
So I always try to mix it up a little bit. I think we've got a nice cross section here in Greenville that I can have a pretty diverse show and switch it up every single time.
Right.
I was able to call in a few out of towners who at the time stuff was starting to shut down And they were like, I haven't been doing anything. Yes, if you buy me a chicken biscuit, I will be there.
Right.
So I got some folks to show up for next to nothing. Now I took care of them.
Right.
But like, yeah, you can book a show, but a lot of things can fall apart.
Yeah.
Doing it. That show was actually 2 shows back to back. It was a 7 p.m. and a 9 p.m. But there was no sort of crowd control, so.
Yeah.
People just were in and out. The bar in the back, people were getting way too drunk and way too loud.
So you needed a little muscle to
Needed a little muscle, and it was me and Blonde's Honest Truth, Amelia Maccabee.
Oh yeah.
She shadowed me because she was about to start doing her own shows, and I said, "Hey, you want to crash course in producing a show? Why don't you come shadow me?" And she ended up being my second set of hands, and she was great. I think she learned a lot, and we talked at great length about all the things that come with producing a show. So if I were to do it again, I would choose one thing to do. Either I am performing, or I am hosting, or I am producing.
Not all 3.
I will never do all 3 ever again. I can't. It's just too much, and too much slips through the cracks, because if you're producing on an independent level like we are, if you're producing, it's you.
Yeah.
You're steering the ship.
Yeah.
The poster looks great. I made that.
Yeah.
I booked the venue. I booked the comedians. I set up the merch tables. I set up the tables and chairs. Like,
I'm getting exhausted.
Yeah. It's so much work. And people think, well, I've been at this for 6 weeks. Netflix ought to be calling me any minute.
Yeah. No.
And when I hear that, I'm always, well, good for you. Yeah. Congratulations. I hope everything works out for you. As soon as they walk away, it's like, bless their heart. Like, oh man, they are in for a rude awakening.
Sure.
Some people, lightning strikes. Good for them. People we know. Good for them.
Yeah.
I'll never speak ill, but like, there's a reason. There is a reason Taylor Tomlinson is on as many podcasts as she is. And there are other comedians who aren't. Taylor Tomlinson has the respect of the road dogs. A lot of people think, wow, quarter life crisis. Man, she came out of the gate. She hit with a bang. She's been doing it since she was 12. Like, like she's been at this for at least a decade before the Netflix special. So when she talks to these guys who've got 10, 15, 20, 30 years, like, she's earned that respect. Not every A-lister comedian has done that.
Right.
Recognizable names.
Yeah, it's interesting the respect that comes with like just the miles on you as a comic. That's a real thing.
It teaches, anybody can do it once. Anybody can do it once. It's 5 minutes of your life. Get up there, talk about your life for a few minutes. You might get some chuckles. Good for you. You checked it off your bucket list, and we'll never see you again.
Yeah.
The real test is, see you next week.
Yeah.
And if they say yes, okay.
Yeah.
And if they do it again and again and again, and here we are. You've been at it for over a year. I'm staring down the barrel of 5.
Yeah. That's cool.
But you got to keep that in your head. Like, again, to come back to comedians in cars getting coffee, Jerry's discussion with Judd Apatow should be standard for anyone who thinks they're going to try stand-up comedy. Because he said, and I've said it to so many people, I'm like, look, this is not my words. This is coming from a professional who's been in the industry on.
What did he say?
He said, you're not going to be good at this for 7 years.
Yeah.
And that's an average. Kevin Hart, it took him a decade to become an overnight success.
Right.
Pull up anybody's numbers. They were no names until they caught their break. And it was usually about a decade in. 7 years is optimistic.
Yeah.
The people who get the Netflix specials, pull up their IMDb sometime.
Right.
Pull up their Wikipedia. Look at all the festivals.
Sure.
Look at all the shows they've been on, all the podcasts they've been on before they got to the thing where you noticed them.
Right.
Usually Netflix. Netflix is kind of the stereotypical bar nowadays. It's like, oh, is your thing on Netflix?
Yeah.
But yeah, Jen Snyder. Have you worked with Jen Snyder yet?
I've met her. I haven't worked with her.
Jen is a brilliant comedian.
Mm-hmm.
She's been cranking at this thing for a while.
Right.
She doesn't have a Netflix special, so a lot of people don't know who she is.
Mm-hmm.
See her perform one time. You will not forget her.
Mm-hmm.
She's amazing.
Right.
Robin Scott, Adam Schulte.
Yep.
We perform with so many of these people, and they're phenomenal artists. Really, really talented.
Yep.
And just because we come from Podunk, South Carolina, doesn't mean we can't make it big. Rory Scovel.
Yeah, Rory.
Aziz Ansari. They're from South Carolina.
I didn't know Aziz was from here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yeah, he's lower part of the state. I forget the name of the city, but yeah.
I gotcha. It's cool, like the see you next week thing. You never met Whitney Rayner, did you?
No, unfortunately.
I think she started this year, maybe shortly after you took a break. But it was a really cool send off for her last Wednesday.
It was her leaving town roast. Yeah,
Adam surprised her. But it was interesting because I hadn't laughed that hard in a very long time at all of the comics, more so than we do at our usual acts.
Yeah.
But what felt like was the people that had been coming week in and week out, we had just seen each other so many times that the jokes were personal. They were savage and mean. They were horrible. But there was so much love in the room that it was just a really memorable night. So I think for the people that do stick it out and come out, it's a really cool community too.
Oh yeah.
And it's important to enjoy that, I think, because like I said, the destination, it may be a long way off, if not never, of a Netflix special or anything.
Oh yeah.
So
it's definitely the journey.
Yeah.
One of the best roast jokes I ever heard was a roast of Adam Schulte.
Really?
Yeah. And there was a comedian who is no longer performing, but he had this one joke about Adam, and I hesitate to say it. Well, I'll just go ahead and say it.
Yeah.
His joke was, and this is not me. This is coming from somebody else. I'll keep their name to myself to preserve their anonymity. But he said, Adam Schulte kind of makes you wish Hitler had tried just a little harder. I remember the first, and I saw a video clip of it. It was before I got started, but I saw a video clip of it, and I don't normally audibly react to stand up. That got a very loud "oh shit" out of me. I was "oh shit," but it's a very well crafted one liner of just brutal joke. And I haven't done any roasts. I'm hesitant to. I've heard enough behind the scenes of kind of what it takes to do a good roast, and I don't think I have that skill set yet.
I don't either. I'm not good at it. My enjoyment of that night was watching the other people. My stuff was whatever, but and
a lot of that stuff can come off as fairly boilerplate of
sure.
If the person's not skinny, okay, they're a fat tub of lard.
Yeah.
If it's a female, okay, we'll call them a slut for an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. That's, but it's the folks that know you best who can kind of zero in on one particular thing.
I agree totally.
I think that's where Jeff Ross, Nikki Glazer really shine because, well, first of all, they're brilliant comedians and amazing writers. And their performance is spot on. Obviously, it better be. They're professionals. But here more recently watching Nikki Glazer, you can find best of Nikki Glazer roasting whoever on YouTube. She zeroes in on certain aspects of these celebrities. I think her stuff about Alec Baldwin, just consistent. I can watch it over and over again, and it consistently makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Her saying her talking about Alec Baldwin's wife and saying she's gorgeous. Does getting yelled at burn calories? I'm like, fuck, that's funny. Fuck, that's so funny.
Alec Baldwin.
Oh my God. But yeah, I think there's a lot of different aspects of comedy that, and I've been talking about this since the beginning, since we started recording, that lend themselves so well to other areas of entertainment. Mm-hmm. And you look at the best, most versatile comics are the ones who can lead a writer's room, who can produce a show or a film, or turn and deliver an incredibly dramatic performance in an Oscar-winning film. Mm-hmm. Robin Williams.
Right.
Brilliant performer. Comedy aside, brilliant performer and so intelligent.
Right.
It's no wonder he was able to knock it out of the park consistently for the better part of his career.
Right.
Yeah, he was brilliant. Mm-hmm. I haven't yet heard anyone say, "Oh, he's the next Robin Williams." You're not going to hear that phrase,
right?
Not for a while, anyway.
No doubt.
But some of those roasts are great. It's kind of fun to watch some of the older roasts. The Dean Martin, Carol Burnett. Oh man, seek them out because you're talking about the golden age. You're talking about the golden age of television, the golden age of comedy, where television at the time was a step above a stage play.
Right.
They just put cameras up and filmed it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the folks at that time, the older performers at that time, were from vaudeville.
Yes.
Who knew how to tell jokes, but also could sing and dance and juggle and do all kinds of stuff.
Vaudeville is, as a definition, I've heard that vaudeville comedian, does that mean like more of a variety show act that can do more than just...
Vaudeville itself was a variety act. I think the closest thing that we have to vaudeville nowadays is a late night talk show, where we've got an actor, we've got a comedian, and here performing their latest single is whatever band you've got. In terms of the variety arts, I think it's down to two: stand-up comedy and professional wreshling.
Okay.
and to a degree, magic.
Okay.
The classical magician. Those are any sort of music performance. They went into the music industry, and the music industry has changed a lot from vaudeville to today. Stunt performers who did a lot of pratfalls and stuff like that. They either became known as physical comedic actors, or they went into the stunt industry and became stunt performers. So, in terms of, like I said, the vaudevillian arts, you've got in their truest forms, in their most unchanged forms, the most unchanged is stand-up comedy and wrestling, professional wrestling. Because a lot of the terms in professional wrestling still refer to vaudeville, like a mark. It's someone you pick in a crowd, and then you're playing to them, or you're using them as a plant. That's all from vaudeville.
Right. The comedian I thought of when I brought that up was T.J. Miller. Have you seen his act?
It's been a while, but yeah, I'm very familiar with TJ.
Yeah, we actually got a chance to speak after his show, and he said his style, he wants to be somewhat of a vaudeville comedian, and he incorporates juggling with his act, incorporates props. It's a lot more than just what I expected, which was traditional stand-up.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, it's so funny. We just talked about Robin Williams, but I still feel like people are still trying to be the next Andy Kaufman. Very much
Man on the Moon.
Yes, he was a song and dance man. But he played with the crowds. he played with the crowd's emotions. Like he played the villain more often than not, because it definitely got a rise out of people. The stuff that he was performing wasn't traditionally funny outside of him and Bob Zamuda, his writer, and anybody else who happened to be in on the joke, which was his agent, George Shapiro, and anybody else who like closely worked with him, like Jerry Lawler.
Right.
He worked very closely.
I didn't know
with
George Shapiro represented Andy Kaufman.
Yeah.
Interesting.
George Shapiro's had a very interesting career. If you ever look at the documentary about Seinfeld,
I have seen it,
called Comedian. He plays a pretty big role in that, because
no question. When Jerry's wrestling with building his new act, George is right there encouraging him, giving him feedback. And he confides in him, which says a lot. I don't think Jerry is that vulnerable to a lot of people. So
right. Plus, you get to see him take on a new client in Orny Adams. Yeah,
which I did not find likable in that documentary. But I like him more now.
Yeah, because I had seen him perform on Letterman long before I saw the documentary. Because again, I kind of grew up on Letterman. But yeah, the way that he is portrayed in the documentary is not exactly in a favorable light.
No, but I think that's who he was.
Yeah, at the time. Yeah,
he was hungry,
very
to break,
hungry.
And a little entitlement. I thought. Who the hell am I again? But
well, we all experience it.
Right.
We all experience it. Of like. It's still a little grating to me when I talk about people coming on my show. Like, I'm like, oh, that sounds like such a douchey thing.
I agree
it's like,
too. When you asked me, I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah.
Well,
when you reached out,
let's just go ahead and address the elephant in the room. How long were you going to wait before you asked me to be on your show, motherfucker?
Dude, people say
I was one of the first people you met in comedy.
I am shocked.
True or false?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've been at this for how long?
Well, see, you'll notice.
And how long have we been following each other on social media?
It's only because
the defense rests.
Travis had the same question, and Jess Cooley had the same question. And I was like, guys, I was nervous to ask anyone who's been doing it longer. And it's just, hopefully that's more flattering than offensive, because I just was like, you don't want to be on this stupid ass show. So I am like really excited that you wanted to. So.
Look, man, I have sent, for my Star Trek show, I have sent invites to everyone from cosplayers, and this is not a joke. I have sent invites to everyone from cosplayers to Barack Obama. Barack Obama has an open invitation to come on my Star Trek podcast, because my wife listened to Michelle's book, and at one point she mentions Barack interacting with Michelle Nichols, who played Uhura in the original series, and he mentioned being a big fan of Star Trek. And I was like, I think I have to ask the former president of the United States to be on my show.
I'm going to start asking more people. This has inspired me.
Worst case scenario, they don't respond.
Right.
Middle of the road, they say no. And someone says, the best case scenario, they say yes. And that's great. Now, once they say yes, you've got your own issues there of like scheduling, and
I better be damn ready if that big name.
Oh, sure. Like, I was talking with someone who had a separate pop culture podcast, and they are living here on the West Coast or on the East Coast. Where am I? East Coast. And on one episode, they had somebody on the West Coast. And they also had somebody in England. That's a big time gap. So good luck with the scheduling. I've been on podcasts with folks out of California a couple times. I actually got to talk with Jeff Dye, comedian Jeff Dye, who absolute sweetheart of a guy, very, very funny. Love him to death. But yeah, dude's busy. Like
For sure.
We got to make sure we schedule this stuff out. You kind of have to look at it like you're planning a wedding of like, of all the invites you send out, 50% will respond, and then 50% of that will actually show up.
Right.
That's kind of the numbers you have to have in your head.
Sure.
I'm in the Star Trek podcast now, Computer Resume podcast, available now wherever you get your podcast. I've gotten to a point where I'm reaching out to other shows.
Okay.
And booking their hosts.
Okay.
As like, hey, let's collab.
Sure.
Let's get together and we'll do a cross promotion. I'll come on your show, you come on my show. It's mutually beneficial.
Right.
Because they'll get what small sliver of the audience I have.
Sure.
Hopefully I get a piece of theirs too.
Right.
So you kind of have to structure it that way of like making sure this stuff is beneficial. That's what people respond to. Yeah. When they see the value of it, they're like, oh, this is probably something I should jump on. Yeah, go for it. Absolutely. I've always been asking for forgiveness rather than permission.
Sure. I'm the
Just
same way.
go ahead and get the cease and desist letter. Fire up your cease and desist letter and send it to me.
Right.
That's when I'll stop.
Right.
Other than that, just do it. Play it for laughs. Have fun with it, man.
Hell yeah.
And it seems like that's what you're doing here.
Yeah.
So it's good. And we'll have to talk a little bit later off mic because I want to ask you a couple of very specific personal comedy questions. But
okay.
What I don't
you
know.
Ask it on here if you want.
I don't know that you've told me what. So you mentioned getting called to Comedy Zone. Like, was it a friend?
Ellen Maloney. Do you remember her?
Ellen Maloney?
She had been doing stand-up out in Denver. And then I met her here at Smiley's down at the end of town. And then I was here for work. I wasn't living here at the time, but I was covering hospitals up here. And she introduced herself and she said, I do comedy. And she said, I'm a comedian. And I was like, oh my gosh, you do like, I didn't even know that was possible.
Nice.
It's similar to what Jess Cooley said, like, oh, stand-up comedy exists, but where do you get started? I didn't know. So she was the first connection I had. And I wasn't even brave enough to, I was just wanting to follow her. I wasn't even brave enough to say, do you think I could maybe try that? And then when I finally was brave enough to voice that to her, it was July last year. I was coming back from an in-service at a hospital, and she texted me, I'm going to Comedy Zone Thursday night. Do you want to come? And that was the text.
Nice.
So, yeah.
You have to print that and frame it.
I should. I don't know if it's still... I have to go back.
You've still got it. Digital stuff
I
lasts
can get
forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what we're planning on doing for... I work at a law firm, and recently our law firm got its first 1-star review.
Okay.
So the plan is between me and the other paralegal is we're going to get the 1-star review printed and in a nice frame and wrap it up and give it to our boss for Christmas.
I like that. That's really cool.
Give it to him for Christmas.
Just gave me an idea. There's one thing I do want to frame. Norm Macdonald tweeted at me in January.
I saw that. Oh my God.
I wanted to frame that one.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That meant the world to me. And,
it's those little things, man. That's why, like, because you never know what sort of interaction, is going to mean so much to you, so much to somebody else. I'm very much, I'm a pretty open book. I will talk to anybody, at any length of time. If you want to talk comedy, I'm there. Absolutely. You want to talk comic books? I'm there. Star Trek, come on my show.
Right.
Like, yeah, absolutely. I'm game. Because, you just never know. Like, go up and ask for the photo. Go up and ask for the signature. Hey, can I ask you a question about performing in comedy? Just fucking ask them.
Yeah.
Because, like, most of the time when I met Eric Roberts, he was working on a film set here in town and I was playing background. In fact, I saw the movie and I am cut out of all of it. No, if you know where to look, you can see me. But anyway, I got to hang out with him for 3 days on the set. We talked about everything. The dude was in Dark Knight.
Right.
He acted across from Heath Ledger as Joker. Like, I'm going to talk to this dude. I'm going to talk to him a lot.
Wait, which character is he? I'm sorry, I didn't know the name.
He plays Maroni. He plays the boss. Yeah, it was Ramirez. That guy. Yeah. He's the guy Batman drops off of a fire escape like 3 stories up.
Yeah, if you're going to try to intimidate somebody, pick a better spot.
I talked to him, and I didn't want to, because I'm a huge Batman fan. But I didn't want to spend like all my time talking to him on that. But I did. I'm on set, and I see some PA go over to him and lean into his ear and go, "It was Ramirez." I'm like, "You asshole. Don't quote the guy's movie to him. Like, don't do that."
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, but you know what? He got to have his little moment with Eric Roberts. Great. Later, I got to, standing next to Eric for a shot. And I said, "Hey, look, I gotta tell you, I'm a Batman fan from the word go, like from a little kid to today. I have a tattoo." If that tells you. He's like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, when I saw you sitting behind the table in the courtroom scene, I was like, he nailed it. And he's like, "Thank you." Like, you could tell he was like genuinely touched by it. He was like, "Thank you so much. I really," because he gets the thing quoted to him all the time, but nobody's like, "Dude, you really nailed it. You really rocked." And then, tell him that stuff.
Yeah.
Later, while we're there on set, I was like, "Hey, look, a friend of mine would absolutely lose her mind if I got a signed picture. Do you mind?" He goes, "Absolutely not. I would absolutely." Yes, in a heartbeat. He goes, "I love that celebrity shit."
Right. That's cool.
Yeah,
it's nice to know hear a celebrity that does
he is a working actor. Like, so any chance he gets to do that sort of thing,
right?
Absolutely. Right. I grabbed a selfie with him. He was super nice about it. But like when he's working. Like, and I've had to do that a couple times. Like before a show, after a show, I will talk with someone at great length. But the way I approach comedy, I think I approach it very academically, analyzing the structure of bits and all that stuff. When the show is going on, if I'm watching someone, don't talk to me.
Right.
I've had to people we know, have had to go, shh, and just,
and that's
like,
respect. That's out of respect for the performer. You don't. Yeah.
There's been a couple times where the person is right here, and I've had to grab their head and turn it towards the stage.
Right.
Like, that's happening right
for
now.
sure. For sure.
But it's, and again, it's just because I take it as seriously as I do. Maybe too seriously. But it's,
yeah, it's supposed to be fun too, Todd.
It's supposed to be fun. I've heard it's supposed to be fun, but I haven't gotten all the I haven't gotten all the evidence in yet. We're still forming our opinion about whether or not stand-up comedy is fun.
Yeah. Like that Remember the Titans scene. You think football is still fun? No. Well, no. Zero fun, sir.
So I've seen some photos around your place. You're a football guy. Did you play? Did you play in college?
Football. Yeah, I played in college.
You played in college?
Division
man.
Division II, so not anything crazy, but yeah. And I coached a little bit at the high school level in Charlotte before defensive line and linebackers. That's
I played defensive line in high school.
Hell yeah.
And a couple of buddies of mine did go on to play college ball. But that's a different world, man.
Oh yeah. College is a big commitment.
Do you have any lasting injuries, lasting scars, mental or otherwise?
Bad back. I'm sure I got concussed a bunch of times.
Neck?
Didn't get diagnosed. Nothing neck. I was lucky. I never missed a game.
What was your position?
Very rarely missed. Defensive end.
Oh, okay. I was nose guard.
Nose guard?
Yeah,
okay.
right across from the ball.
Yeah. I played Mike linebacker.
Nice.
When I came in, which was kind of cool. It's like the quarterback of the defense. You call out the scheme.
Oh, yeah.
And then they moved me to defensive end.
They were the ones slapping my butt, telling me to move over.
Exactly.
Boom, move to your left.
Yeah.
Move to your right.
Stunting, you're lining up the defense. You're watching the scheme. Your pass coverage and do both. So I started at Mike linebacker my third year and then loved it. And then we graduated our stud All-American defensive end. And they said, "David, we got to get you to move down there and play that position." So I started at defensive end 2 years, but didn't know what I was doing because that's not a position to easily master. If you know martial arts,
I do.
Pass rush is like martial arts,
very much,
and hands and stuff.
Oh yeah, I got to put my handwork, my footwork, and my flexibility to use even as a nose guard.
Sure,
as I was arguably the most flexible person on the field.
Yep.
But it was great because I could bounce off of people, and hit the ground, pop up, and keep running.
Right. Attention to detail and pass rush and defensive line technique is so important. And the film study was the biggest difference between high school and college. You spent so much time in the classroom analyzing your step. Like you rewind, play, replay. That step is 6 inches too long. Yep. Shorten it. Your pad levels, your hands.
Oh yeah.
You didn't use this move. You could have you didn't notice he opened himself up for that. There's so much going on in a football field. I could go on forever with that, but
yeah, I remember because I would always, my 3-point stance was horrible
yeah,
because I would crouch like a coiled snake.
You're right. Yeah, that's
because that's what I knew from karate. That's how we do. So I would crouch and then spring up that way instead of starting up and going straight forward.
Yeah. Coaching a football team is one of the most all-engrossing jobs. I mean, that's why it's divided up into
special
teams.
Special sections. Yeah.
And position group.
Have you ever considered sports writing?
No, not really. Sports writing? Writing creative stories about sports?
No, covering sports.
No, have not.
Why not?
I don't know if I'd find it that interesting.
Okay,
because I'm writing about other people that I don't know. I guess if I was really invested in the team, if I was like a local writer,
here's
people.
I did sports writing for 1 season. I covered a local high school on Friday night.
Okay.
And I covered a local Division II.
That would be fun. That would be really fun.
High school.
I take it back. I was visualizing writing for the NFL. I'm like,
No. I covered local high school Friday nights and then would cover Division II, North Greenville University. I covered them on Saturdays when I covered their home games because their stadium's very close to my house. But it was for a local place. It was for a local news outlet here in town, Greer Today, just an online. It's little more than a blog. But I got in the way you do comedy.
Right.
I just called up the school and was like, "Hey, I want to write."
Dude, you're hilarious.
Yeah,
this is how you get on.
Hey, I want to write. Can I come sit in the press box? They're like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you've ever gone to a game and thought, "Oh man, I'd really like to sit in the press box," ask them.
Yeah.
They might say yes. So I did that for high school, which high school around here, it can be a little dodgy of you might have a chair to sit in, you might have a good view of the field. Maybe that's not what we're really focused on.
Are you following one team or multiple teams?
I would usually do the one team.
Yeah, that to me would be more enjoyable. Going deep.
It's a little easier to keep track of.
Yeah, for sure.
It depends on your prep work. You can actually prep the week before, But then Division II, covering North Greenville, totally different ball game, even from the press side.
This is how ignorant I am to the local football scene. So North Greenville is D2 here in town. There's a D2 school. Holy shit.
Yeah. Their team's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going to see them, headline anything on ESPN or anything like that, but they have a solid program.
Have they made the D2 playoffs?
Yes, the year I was covering them, they made the playoffs.
Okay,
and that was a lot of fun.
For people who don't know, making the D2 playoffs is very challenging. It's very hard. You basically have to go undefeated or 1 or maybe 2 losses.
The only school that I saw dominate them was the Citadel.
Okay,
and it was kind of it's the Citadel.
Yeah,
because I watched a running back and a Citadel wide receiver versus a North Greenville defensive back.
Okay,
and they took off running. And wide receivers looking for the catch. It lands in his hands perfectly. And then he started running. Like he caught the ball and it was like afterburners engaged.
Right.
Like boom, he took off. And I was just like, oh, he dusted that dude.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's the Citadel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
They're training to dodge bullets, like and mortar fire.
The level of separation among athletes is interesting because you see it coming up. I remember in high school there was a guy, Ronald Johnson, who ended up playing for the Eagles and the Niners for a while.
Nice.
I was my freshman year. We played against him, and we had this whole defense set up, and we thought, okay, we're going to stop this quarterback, and he took the ball, just ran around the end for a touchdown. Like we didn't even know what happened. We were like, holy shit. Like it was like, and then there was another guy, Terrence Taylor, who played for Michigan. I don't know if he played in the NFL, but yeah, he ate my lunch a few times because I played quarterback in high school. But
oh wow.
But yeah, just there's before, like everybody's kind of like at this level, and then there's these guys that are just way above and separate, and that even happens in college at the D1 level. I feel like there's a lot of separation between the Alabamas, the Ohio States, the Clemsons.
Oh sure.
And then everybody else.
Yeah.
That's why I love the NFL, because everybody's at the top, and it's like a war.
Yeah. Well, let me further sell you on sports writing.
Okay.
Because honestly, even though I only did it for a season, it was the best thing I could have done. And here's why. You're on the clock. Mm-hmm. Like, you got to pay attention. Mm-hmm. And that 350 words has to be ready fast. And it's got to be good.
Right.
So you're getting there. You're getting your spot. I was the only guy in the press box handwriting score, like keeping track of every single play, handwritten. High school, you kind of have to do it that way. Division II,
they have official stat keepers.
They have official stat keepers, and at one point I felt a tap on my shoulder, and it was this little girl going, "Here you go," handing me this big stack of papers. I was like, "What's this?" She goes, "The first half." I was like,
I'd always get mad.
Thank you.
I'd always get pissed off at the stat keepers because I'd finish a game and I'd be like, okay, I had 4.5 tackles and 2 tackles, and they'd be like, they shorted me. Like I had, like, who gets credit for a tackle? Kind of be a gray area.
But all that to say, like, you're going to be sitting in a box with a couple of seasoned veterans who are, steadily cranking it out for either Greenville News or Spartanburg Herald or wherever. But like to sit next to them and crank something out quickly, and okay, it's fourth quarter with how much left to go? Okay, I'm going to pack up and go down for the interview.
Right.
And then try to go grab the star player, grab the coach, get a couple words, whip out the phone, get a couple words recorded, and then go back to your laptop. And
when is it due?
It's due more times than not. I would look at another veteran writer who was sitting in the press box with me, and I would go, "When's your deadline?" And they would go, "About 20 minutes ago."
Holy shit.
Yeah. So I'm talking like fast.
So like 11 o'clock p.m.
Oh yeah,
or earlier maybe.
Yeah, if the game starts at 7 or 8, game's over by 10 or 11. Like at most, a generous deadline is midnight. Okay. Like that's very generous.
Wow.
But once you do that, a lot of the hard writing assignments or showing up to take notes on a thing, like, is not a big deal.
You probably become better at filtering relevant data.
This is important. Write it down. This is important. Write it down.
Does it help with comedy?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think on the fly and just keep and to stay with the play. Like, don't get distracted because they're gonna snap the ball in 30 seconds. Like, you got to be ready. So with comedy, I'm sure everyone has loved our football discussion so far, but we are going to bring it back into comedy, I promise. To bring it back into comedy, being able to pay attention to the room, which means you have to know your material, not even looking at a set list, because I usually worked off a set list.
Right.
If I was working new material, like it was written out word for word, but like the bits, I have my bits in one word.
That's how I have it.
Yeah,
typically.
So I've got the set list, and I've structured it so that I can glance at the set list.
Yeah,
and not
exactly.
go over and what is it? No.
Yeah.
People write their words that big. No, write them really big. Just put the paper where the audience can't see.
Right.
But anyways, knowing your material lets you pay attention to the audience. So if someone reacts too much or doesn't react enough, according to you, you can address it. You might get a laugh there, then move on, get back into your stuff. And being able to
I can see how that definitely sharpens you.
Yeah, and just think on your feet. Plus, going down to get the interview kind of eliminates fear of this person's gigantic and might eat me. But I'm going to ask them so what did you think about when you got the ball in your hand and you ran to the field?
Yeah.
And it eliminates that. So when you meet a Mark Norman or a Lewis Black, you can go, hey, can I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah.
And there's just there's no fear. There's no fan boy giddiness that you're approaching it as hey, I want to learn something from you.
Sure.
I may not be a peer, but I'd like to be, and I just want to look. You're the expert, so I'd like to ask you. Most people really respect that.
For sure.
This person recognizes, and they're not all don't be like that. Just
I get like that.
Just look. They are a human being. They put their pants on one leg at a time.
Sure.
Just ask your question.
For sure.
It's when you start. They lose interest and they're gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, just hey, can I ask you about comedy? And just just go with it like that. Do it for a season.
Yeah.
I started I actually put myself through training before I did the season.
Okay.
Because you can find full games on YouTube. So I would pull up a game and just hit play with the rule of I'm not allowed to press pause.
Right.
And just do it exactly like you're going to do it. Pay attention to the names. Pay attention to the number.
Roster, number.
Yep. Watch look at what you're doing. Look at what's going on and just keep writing. Then when the game's over, close that out, open up Microsoft Word and okay, I've got 30 minutes. 350 words, you're good to go. If you can stick it in some stats, great. If you can address an injury that happened last week, or hey, we're going across town, or we're going to to this other state next week, and it's going to be available here for you to watch. All right, great.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys do color commentary for the games too. Did they start as what do they call it? Beat writers?
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah, a lot of them have a beat. And I mean, we're talking Division I. We're talking pros.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Because I called up Clemson. Hey, can I come? They're like, no. Yeah, we'll make ESPN slide down so you can fit in to sit there for Greer today. Okay, but ask. Furman, same thing. I got the same thing from Furman. They have a couple more hoops to jump through. But, you start calling around to some high schools, some Division II. Yeah, they're down. And then you just, I made my own press credentials.
How much work does it take outside of just the game day?
Outside of game day? Not much.
Not much? Okay. Yeah. That would be a deal breaker somewhat in terms of
okay,
I'm trying to pick and choose.
Let's say you're covering high school, which high school's Friday.
Yeah.
College is Saturday. It's been that way forever. I would prep for the high school game on Thursday. Or I might prep for the high school game on Wednesday and prep for the college on Thursday.
Okay.
So now I've got whatever notes I'm taking, be it rosters, injuries, whatever's going on in the news regarding this team or players or coaches or staff.
Yep.
Whatever's happening, I've got my notes set, ready to go. I'll even draft up some headlines.
Right.
I'll even draft up Clemson wins versus, but I'll come up with a clever pun or some sort of alliteration that's snappy that an editor loves.
Yeah.
Come up with some of those so that when you're done with your article, you pick the best one out of your 6 that you drafted up, slap that on there, make sure you spell your name correctly, and send it to your editor, and you're done.
Yeah.
You could literally knock it out. Outside of the game, you could literally knock it out in probably about an hour and a half.
Okay.
And then how much you get paid for that is between you and your editor, but It's tough. It's tough breaking in.
Yeah.
You're actually almost better off. You're actually almost better off starting your own sports blog.
Okay.
And doing it on your own, and then your bread and butter is football and baseball.
Okay.
Because they usually don't overlap.
Right.
And so you can cover football, and when football's done, you cover baseball. And if nothing's going on, or there's no home games, or you can't get to a game, find a drone race, find a tennis match, find something. They're playing Magic the Gathering. I'm going to cover the tournament. Like, find something.
Okay.
You know? Racing, boat racing, car racing, whatever it is.
Sure.
Find something.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, it's great training. It's really great training to break down social barriers as an interviewer. And in terms of writing, like your speed will pick up, your accuracy picks up, like your attention to detail picks up. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. And because you have a sports background, it's going to be a cakewalk for you.
Yeah.
You're going to be able to sit down and crank out 350 words pretty easily.
Because it does sound like less of an obligation than coaching. You know, coaching is 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And a ton of time in the classroom. Crazy.
Oh, yeah. Well, and again, like you start looking at the roster. This was what I would do. I would start looking at the roster for names that matched. I was like, siblings?
Yeah,
cousins?
Right.
Now you've got your special interest piece.
Yeah. My little brother played. They did those on us.
Yeah. You go to the coach and say, hey, is are so-and-so and so-and-so related? Oh, yeah, they're cousins or they're brothers or whatever. Hey, would it be possible to get an interview like off to the side? And then, okay, yeah, you schedule that with school. You get somebody who has a decent camera to, okay, put your jerseys on and cross your arms and stand back to back.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, for sure.
Send that to your editor. Now you just went the extra mile.
Right.
Yeah, it's a good way to go. And again, if you've got the stand-up comedy writing background, writing's going to be easier. If you don't, it's a great way to start because you're going to be able to write stuff on the fly and you're going to pay attention to detail. It's good stuff, man. Like I wish I know you typically ask about dumpster fires.
Yeah, I do.
Right?
I do, yeah.
My 20s. Seriously, I wasted my 20s so much. I sat around, I played video games, read comic books. I had every opportunity to, pursue acting, comedy, whatever. Did none of it. Right. Now, I got a lot of great life experience. Got married, had a career in law enforcement that ended. Got to see some fucked up stuff in that.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it all led me to a place where I can now do stand up and now I can podcast.
Sure.
All of that stuff lends to those things and builds you up for the next thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, dude, I love it. I think we set the record. Yes, we absolutely have. This is like a Rogan episode.
Really?
How long do you think it's been?
Oh, geez.
2 hours and 45 minutes. Yeah.
Nice.
And,
it's like I said, I will talk at length.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
What other questions of yours haven't I answered? Because God knows when you'll ask me back.
Yeah. Best piece of advice you've ever received. Now you've given a lot of advice, or you've through a conversation.
Yeah.
But what's that one?
Best advice. Get out of the house. Look. Most advice that a comedian is going to give you about comedy is probably stitched on a pillow somewhere. It's very
it doesn't have to be
standard,
comedy advice. It could be general.
Right. It's very standard, very boilerplate stuff. Comedy comes from life experience. So get out of the house. If someone says, "Hey, I'm headed to a museum. Can I ride? Can I go with?" Or like, "Hey, I have to drive to Ohio to help my grandmother move into an old folks home. Need a set of hands? Go do it. Yeah. Get some life experience of anything.
Right.
Absolute. Jump out of a fucking plane.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. But you can't talk about life if you haven't lived it.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's some comedy advice, but it also applies to other things. But like, make the and like I said, boilerplate. I wasted my 20s in terms of creative output, and that's my own fault.
That's kind of in the other question is regret.
Yeah, I wasted my 20s.
Yeah.
So, again, it's, almost cliched to say, but it's very true. Make the most of the time you have. Like, yeah, I just finished writing a script. I wrote that while I was on the job. Like, any sort of downtime, turn it into creative time. Like, if you've got, 10 minutes between calls, pull up that manuscript and, write a couple more lines of dialogue. Pull up that bit that you're working on. Do it. Pull up the file that you're currently editing for your next podcast episode. Do a little bit of editing. Like, I put a lot into my editing because I add like sound effects and music and all that stuff. If I wait to the last minute, I miss weekend time with my wife.
Sure.
So it behooves me to make the most of every minute I have.
Sure.
And I still struggle with that. It's hard to cure lazy. But you do it one step at a time. And read a book, ask somebody a question. You never know what might come of it. Hell, I wore all black to a grocery store with the neck gaiter masks. So without realizing it, I was walking around dressed like a ninja. I rounded the corner and came face to face with an Asian man.
Yeah.
We both looked at each other. We both thought of the ninja joke, but we also realized that whoever makes the ninja joke is racist. So like two masters, we gave each other a polite nod and continued on our way. But you never know what, write it down, fucking write it down. Whatever comes your way, just even if that's what I use Twitter for. Twitter is great for joke writing, especially those I have a nugget of an idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Throw it up on Twitter and work it on Twitter. You've got a limited amount of space. Part of what I see as the most difficult thing for writers is the editing process because we hold our words. There are words. I don't want to let them go.
Right.
No, you need to cut this thing. Like, you need to rearrange it.
Yeah. Concise.
And Twitter's great for that because you've only got a little bit of space. So you can learn how to refine a joke really quickly.
That's helpful. I know Mark Norman does a lot of Twitter.
Yeah.
Working bits out.
Absolutely. Work stuff out through Twitter for sure. It's a great tool. It's a tool to use. It's not the end all be all, but it's a great tool to use and it's fucking free. Like so much of this stuff you have to pay to use. There's comedy clubs that make you pay to play. I hate that. It's service industry. Your people are making tips. I'm not.
Right.
But yeah, like do as much as you can. The old joke that I tell everybody is just like, are you successful in comedy? It's like, well, I've gotten a lot of free cheeseburgers and encouragement, but that's about as much as you'll make doing comedy.
Right.
In that first decade anyway, like unless you start like really hitting the road and start like really promoting yourself and promoting shows, is anybody going to, throw, $50, $100, $200 your way?
Right.
Like there's comics out there who have graciously let me sleep on their couch, but they are living gig to gig, like sleeping on couches and in closets, just waiting for, okay, show starts at 8.
Yep.
Here we go.
Yep.
But yeah, that's do as much as you can, read as much as you can, write as much as you can, live as much as you can, ask as many questions of as many people as you can, be as nice as you can to everyone you can, as much as you can. There's people who are not going to let you be nice to them.
Right.
Just move on to somebody else.
Okay.
Don't waste your time. There's people like that. There's people we know like that.
Sure.
I don't talk to them very much.
Right.
Just because I know, okay, we don't really mesh so well. So I'm going to go this way. So, okay. We were at 2:45. Are we up over 3?
2:51.
2:51.
Well, we're 30 minutes into the radio room open mic.
That was my whole goal, was to just talk long enough that you would miss the mic.
I'm not missing it. I'm going. Schulte will let me on late.
Schulte will let you on for sure. For sure.
No, it'll be good. But dude, before we go, like, promote your stuff one more time. So we talked about the 2 podcasts.
Yes.
And all your personal stuff.
Okay. You can follow my Star Trek podcast at Computer Resume on all of the socials, where we cover all of Star Trek in chronological order. That's at Computer Resume on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you want to hear me and my friends talk about sci-fi and horror and action movies, look at cinema_shock on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or go to cinemashock.net for all of our episodes. My wife and I cover comic books every Sunday while we eat brunch. If that sounds like something you're into, check out Comic Book Club Brunch on Instagram. You can follow me at Mr. Todd A. Davis on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and D&D Beyond.
Love it. And I want to say thank you too, because Todd just gave me one of his T-shirts, which I love. And
T-shirts available always.
I'm probably gonna rock it tonight.
Please do.
And I do want to make a T-shirt. In fact, I have one for our podcast. It's a prototype.
Yeah.
But in the event I have like more, I'll absolutely give you one, and all the guests
yes,
too.
Yes, please. Absolutely.
It's just got the logo on the back, the hangman, and a little stand-up mic right here.
Very cool.
So yeah, man, dude, thanks for coming on. It's been a blast.
Thanks for having me.
And
dude.
I'll ask you again for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
All right, man. Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.